Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 2281, Drill. Hamlin volunteered to go, surprising Nicholas quite a bit. The other holy beings heaved a sigh of relief. With their universes, holy beings could not really be killed. But there were always unprecedented factors that led to accidents. When Nicholas led people to chase after Lorena, some of the holy beings fell into the lethal fire magma and perished. Lorena had somehow cut off the holy beings' connection to the universes for the time being, meaning that their deaths were absolute without any chance of them being reborn again. Now, the people they were to face were those from the outer world. No one knew what sort of theurgy they had. Going ahead meant taking great risks. If you're willing to go, that's good. I swear to ensure the safety of your universe. Nicholas said in a serious tone. Because Nicholas had promised to ensure Hamlin's universe's safety, that meant securing Hamlin's very life, as well as the position of the Zhao clan above the time sea. Hamlin smiled at that. Holy Nicholas's words always count. I have no more worries. The sooner we go, the better. Let's set off now, Hamish said flatly. In spite of his calm demeanor, Hamish could feel the anxiety in his heart. As a powerful master at the other shore realm, Hamish had always believed that the Yellow Emperor guards had full control of the overall situation. So long as the mixed element seal was removed, it meant the freedom of his many fellowmen. It wouldn't be long until they could take down the divine land. But when he suddenly heard of the arrival of someone from the outside world, an ominous sense of foreboding filled his mind. He was eager to confirm the people's strength and stand, so he needed to see for himself. The space channel they built has penetrated my Murphy universe. I think they should be at the very top. Hamlin, you can reach there through my Murphy universe. If you don't mind, I'll create a space channel first. Hamlin, Nicholas, and Master Hamish, follow me, Murphy suggested. A universe could only accommodate 3 true gods simultaneously. Such was the number Nicholas had set after modifying the rule on the ruling slate. Because the holy beings, in essence, were also consummate true gods, it was impossible for Murphy to invite all the holy beings in the Golden Rain Hall into the Murphy universe. They'd trigger the ruling slate and be punished by it accordingly. For now, he could only invite Nicholas, Hamlin, and Hamish into his Murphy universe. But as for Murphy himself, the creator of the universe, he wasn't limited by such a rule. Nicholas and Hamish exchanged nods. Then, Murphy reached out his hand and started using grand teleportation. An invisible space fluctuation rose upward, instantly connecting him to the Murphy universe. Hamlin, Nicholas, and Hamish followed along the space fluctuation and also employed the grand teleportation. They went after Murphy into the Murphy universe. Atop the Murphy universe was a light green star. To the pseudo-sacred race in this universe, it was the largest and brightest star, a keeper of countless mysterious legends. Many masters of the Murphy universe dreamed of reaching this star. But after reaching a certain height, they'd encounter an invisible, space wall. No matter how hard they tried, the wall prevented them from making it through. For creatures in this world, the star was like a flower in the mirror, a moon in the water that they could see and aspire to obtain but never touch. No one was aware that it was merely a temporary palace Murphy had built in his inner world. Buzz. As space fluctuated, Murphy had appeared in the palace on the star. With a point of his finger, a colorful bush of flowers bloomed in an instant, the faint fragrance spreading over the entire palace. At this moment, Nicholas, Hamish, and Hamlin appeared before him. That space channel has been constructed in that direction. Murphy pointed. Hamlin took his glance and nodded without a word. A little deviation was acceptable to a holy being. Only a thought was necessary to use grand teleportation and cross the distance, after all. Murphy, Hamish, and Nicholas each attached a wisp of their soul to Hamlin before he activated grand teleportation, took a step forward, and entered the space channel. It was connected to the chaos outside the divine land. Roaming about this chaos was an almost compulsory course for holy beings. After the consummate true gods and demi-holy beings became holy beings in the mountain of holy beings, they developed an extreme curiosity for the world outside the divine land, as they had already reached the peak level in the divine land. If they wanted to reach a higher level, they could only seek chances outside of the divine land. But most holy beings were met only with disappointment after traveling through chaos. Save for the large space of chaos, there was nearly nothing else there. The majority of holy beings flew around the divine land a few times before accepting disappointment and returning to the divine land and working on their clans' development, making their floating islands notably powerful in the divine land. This was Hamlin's second time out of the divine land. When he stood atop it, his vision grew wide. His view of the world from there was extremely vast. He saw nothing in the broad space. Where were the people he was looking for? Standing still, he narrowed his eyes as his spiritual sense spread to all directions around him. 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 100,000 miles. In another place atop the divine land, Emily stood in the air as a colorful ring spun underneath her. At the center of this colorful ring were high-speed spinning space waves. They formed an enormous spatial spiral, constantly drilling into the restriction barrier in space. She had held this position for a long time. Timotheus, Ramsey, Leopold, and the female warriors of the snake goddess race remained sitting cross-legged with their eyes shut. Breaking through the restriction barrier was undoubtedly a time and energy-consuming act. They were prepared for the long haul. "Master, you've been holding on for over half a month. We can take over," said a snake goddess warrior at the other shore realm. Emily only smiled faintly in return. "This is nothing. I will feel nothing even after doing this for a year or so." "But we also," the warrior trailed off, a strange look appearing on her expression. Simultaneously, Timotheus, Ramsey, and Leopold opened their eyes. They felt a faint wisp of spiritual sense spread over them. "Who is spying on us?" Leopold said, knitting his brows. "It's merely a consummate true god. No, this person is stronger than ordinary consummate true gods," Timotheus added. "HMPH. No matter who it is, we'll find out after I catch the person. Cecilia, take my place and continue working." Emily sneered and disappeared from where she stood. Cecilia, the powerful warrior at the other shore realm, then replaced Emily and continued drilling into the restriction barrier below. Chapter 2282, A Conversation. Emily knew her current ability. It was just a piece of cake for her to find the target following the spiritual sense. The moment she disappeared, she had already identified where the spiritual sense came from. Meanwhile, Hamlin had discovered Emily and the others outside the divine land along his spiritual sense. After locating their presence, he felt a wave of space above his head. Buzz! What a quick response! Hamlin was absolutely shocked. Emily suddenly appeared as she stood upright in midair. She looked down at Hamlin, and sneered, "You are a so-called holy being, right?" She was obviously not being haughty towards him. But the aura emanated from her body still made Hamlin under a lot of pressure. He felt that the pressure was much stronger than that of Hamish. Ordinary true gods would simply think Emily was extraordinary, but Hamlin, as a holy being, was keenly aware that he couldn't afford to offend her. "My name is Hamlin Zhao," he respectfully introduced himself. Both his hands were cupped, making him look rather humble. He kept telling himself in his heart not to annoy the woman in front of him. Emily glanced at him coldly. With a flick of her finger, a colorful ring enveloped Hamlin. Swoosh! Hamlin felt that the space around him was locked, as he was dragged into a space channel. Meanwhile, inside the green star at the top of the Murphy universe, Hamlin's companions had sensed something different. Nicholas and Murphy looked extremely cautious. Through their souls on Hamlin, they sensed Emily's action. "Master Hamish, do you know this woman?" Nicholas asked. Both of them felt the same aura since their souls had been attached to Hamlin. The pressure given by Emily was too much. "I don't know her," Hamish uttered, shaking his head. At this situation, he also felt very cautious. He, who was known to be an expert at the other shore realm, felt burdened. "But this woman is very powerful." The faces of Nicholas and Murphy immediately darkened as soon as they heard Hamish's comment. "How strong is she?" Nicholas asked once more. He was not reconciled. "Even you are no match for her." A bitter smile appeared on Hamish's face. "Both of us are at the other shore realm, but there is a huge gap in strength between us. That woman is obviously a top-level figure at the other shore realm. As for me," Hamish shook his head affirmatively, "I am far from being her match." Such a revelation far exceeded their expectations. The two looked at each other, and both had found surprise apparent in their eyes. As they were immersed in a discussion, Emily had already dragged Hamlin out of the space channel. Nicholas and the other two once again felt that something happened and couldn't help but take a deep breath. They were surprised to see that more than 10 strong warriors at the other shore realm appeared. A look of horror immediately spread across their faces. All of these warriors had an imposing manner and were not much weaker than Emily. Timotheus sat on the ground and looked straight at Hamlin. "Tell me, why did you use your spiritual sense to spy on us?" Standing among the crowd of warriors at the other shore realm, Hamlin tried to calm himself down as he answered, "I didn't spy on you." Hearing this, Timotheus, Emily and the others looked at each other and smiled lightly. "As a true god, you can't lie to me. You're overestimating yourself," Emily stated. She walked slowly towards Hamlin. As she was close to him, her fingers slowly fell on his forehead. A cold sensation soon came into his mind. In the eyes of Emily, holy beings who had their own universes were indeed much more powerful than consummate true gods, but they were weaker than her. Hamlin was a holy being, but he found out that he was still too weak to resist. As the colorful light on Emily's fingertips flashed, she gently pulled back. 3 palm-sized colorful rings gradually floated in the air, in which there were 3 souls. She had actually forcefully extracted the souls of Hamish, Nicholas and Murphy. 2 holy beings, and 1 at the other shore realm. You 3 are the people behind him. Am I right? Emily lightly spoke to the 3 souls. The 3 souls then began to change. The soul in the front quickly turned into the appearance of Hamish. He made a fist salute and greeted politely, "You must come from the source world, right?" "Sorry, I didn't come out to greet you. It's my fault." "Sorry, you just sent a scapegoat because you didn't dare to come out," Emily spat in a cold voice. Emily and Timotheus could clearly see through such a little trick at a glance. Hamish admitted frankly, "I had no choice. I'm not powerful enough. I was afraid I'd be killed, so I had to be cautious. Please forgive me, but, what brings you here?" Hamish, at the moment, still held a glimmer of hope in his heart. He was hoping that these people were not his enemies. "What brings us here?" Emily had a faint smile on her face as she said, "Of course, we come to help Zen and eliminate all his enemies. I think you should be on his list too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have appeared in front of us furtively and inquired about our stand." The hearts of Hamish, Nicholas and Murphy sank all of a sudden at Emily's words. This was probably the last thing they wanted to hear. Back in the Murphy universe, Murphy spoke with a bitter smile, "Zen is so lucky to have so many powerful warriors at the other shore realm to help him." Nicholas sighed as he took a deep breath. Rochelle, at the time in the Time-Sea Forbidden Land, had the chance to kill Zen. However, he had personally ordered Troy to stop her. He had never expected that his own order would bring such a huge hidden trouble. It was truly incredible. Hamish thought for a moment. He continued to control his soul, and made an offer. "We can give all that Zen can give to you, including the entire Divine Land. What do you think?" The Divine Land contained Chiyu's painstaking efforts, and its own value was extraordinary. The exiles at the bottom of the chaos had also made countless plans to lay their hands on the Divine Land. Because of Emily, they could only give up on this idea. "Give me the Divine Land." Emily was slightly stunned, and then looked at Timotheus with a meaningful smile. Timotheus, Ramsay, Leopold of the 9 Lee race burst into laughter. Their laughter gave Hamlin the creeps and made the 3 figures back in the Murphy universe feel guilty. Timotheus stood up. In the face of Hamish's soul, his eyes were filled with killing intent. He rebuked, "You're just an unknown Yellow Emperor guard. How dare you hand over the Divine Land? Do you think that the Divine Land belongs to you as you live in it? Do you even know who built the Divine Land?" Chapter 2283, Emily's Confidence. The other shore realm was a cultivation realm, and it especially referred to the creatures that had stepped onto the other shore. The strength of 2 other shore realm warriors could be quite different. Being a Yellow Emperor guard, Hamish was considered a powerful person in the source world. But in Timotheus's and Emily's eyes, his ability was nothing. Hamish felt strange about Timotheus' words. He stared at him and asked, "What do you mean?" Emily smiled faintly and answered on Timotheus' behalf, "Chiyu built the Divine Land, and Timotheus, a member of the 9 Lee race, is a 5-star 9 Lee guard. Don't you find it too naive to think you can trade with the Divine Land?" The words changed the faces of Hamish, Nicholas, and Murphy dramatically. They didn't know how Zen managed to invite these mighty warriors. Because they couldn't deal with the warriors, they intended to instead sacrifice their interest in the Divine Land to bribe them. It was a last resort, but much to their surprise, the old man before them was a member of the 9 Lee race and a 9 Lee guard. Timotheus' face was solemn as he said in a deeply stern voice, "The Divine Land belongs to my clan. If you are smart enough to leave quickly, I will let you go without killing you." Now, Timotheus and Emily had fully expressed their stance. There was no room to maneuver. The wisps of souls of Murphy, Hamish, and Nicholas grew silent. Even Hamlin felt dejected at the moment. It seemed that the people there were truly hostile and he feared for his own survival. "What if we don't leave?" Hamish asked. A glint flashed in Timotheus' eyes before he shook his burly body and picked up Hamlin into the air. An irresistible force then enveloped Hamlin, containing immense power from the other shore realm. Having been bound by Emily, there was no way for Hamlin to resist Timotheus' attack. Crack, crack, crack. Hamlin could feel the irresistible force pouring into every part of his body in an instant right as he exploded. His bones began breaking. Crack. With an explosive sound, his body turned into fine powder. "If you don't want to leave, this is what you will end up with," Timotheus announced grimly. His blow killed Hamlin, a holy being, so easily. But when Hamlin's body was completely crushed, a strange dot of light appeared in his belly. With a flash, the dot fled from the space atop the divine land. Huh! From beside them, Ramsay saw the dot flee as a strange color filled his expression. He moved to the back of the dot while rapidly making several palm marks in an attempt to stop it. Buzz! The palm marks turned into circles of dark green runes. They continued covering the dot, but they failed to block it. In spite of his attempts, Ramsay could only watch as the dot fled and entered the divine land. If an ordinary true god's body was broken into pieces, their inner world directly collapsed, leaving their soul for death. In this case, their death became absolute. But after a holy being built their own universe, it became one with the divine land. So long as the universe was intact, they wouldn't be totally dead. There were only two methods to kill a holy being. One was to destroy them and their universe simultaneously, and the other was to break their connection to the universe while they were killed. Ramsay was trying to cut off Hamlin's connection to his universe, but his attempts failed. He didn't have enough power to deal with Chiyu's design. The only person who was powerful enough to do so in the divine land was Lorena. Such was why she had managed to kill several holy beings with the lethal fire magma underground. "Good, let's wait and see if this day will come," Hamish's soul said with a sinister smile before it exploded and dissipated into the colorful halo. Meanwhile, Nicholas's and Murphy's souls burst as well. Timotheus maintained his posture after crushing Hamlin. After gradually calming down, he said to Emily, "Since they sent someone to inquire about our stand, we could kill him directly. Why did you have to mention Zen?" Ramsay flew back. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he said, "We shouldn't have sent Zen into the divine land through the space tunnel in the holy being's universe. They must have found us along this space tunnel. It puts Zen at an extreme disadvantage. They still couldn't enter the divine land. Once Zen was in danger, they'd be unable to help him." Emily smiled faintly. "Since you've put so much of your hope in Zen, if he can't overcome even such difficulties, how do you expect him to return to the source world? Those are two different matters. Even if you want to train him, there's no need to have him directly face the masters at the other shore realm," Timotheus returned. Clearly, they belong to the same matter. Moreover, Emily looked down at the divine land under her feet. Colorful rays of light spread out in her view, her gaze reaching infinitely far. It was as though she could see Zen in the divine land right at this moment, like everything was in her control. "Moreover, since I could send Zen in, I can also get him out." Meanwhile, in the swirl forest, Zen was sitting still on an emerald green lake as he silently circulated the truth of cultivation nature. The internal momentum in his inner world collided fiercely. Such was the greatest trouble brought by ways blending energy. It was no easy feat blending hundreds of godly ways perfectly. Once one of the godly ways had changed, the original way's blending energy became extremely unstable. One could imagine what a disaster would come about if unstable ways blending energy burst in the inner world. This time, however, Zen needed to integrate all the ways blending energy once more after reaching the consummation of true God realm. It's too troublesome. Each time you absorb one godly way, you need to integrate this again. It's too inefficient. It won't do you any good even after you merge all of them in the end. To achieve the godly way's great unity is merely wishful thinking. Number 9527 conveyed its consciousness to Zen's mind. It had long despised the way's blending energy. "It remains important to me at this stage," Zen simply replied. The power of mixing ways blending energy and the emotion closing godly way was not to be underestimated. In fact, it was enough to act as his trump card. All that mattered was that he believed his father's arrangement must have some sort of hidden meaning, so he had no intention of giving up. Chapter 2284, Got Together. As Zen began to recite the truth of cultivation by heart, he allowed himself to be completely immersed in a natural state, both his body and soul extremely relaxed. Drip, drip, He was so at ease that he could hear the sound of dew rolling off the leaves, the buzzing of the mosquitoes and flies, and the noise the grass made when it was swaying in the wind. At the same time, when he merged the godly ways, he had also made slight progress in the truth of cultivation nature. Zen had grasped 99% of the truth of cultivation nature before. If he could break through the last obstacle, then he could begin to cross the sea of truth. The problem was, such an obstacle wasn't that easy to surpass. In fact, he had not yet succeeded since he left the divine land. After an entire day, a surge of extremely powerful energy emerged in the center of the green lake. The energy waves continued to spread, causing the once calm lake to tremble and roll like boiling water. Sensing that kind of change in the atmosphere, the creatures that surrounded the lake scattered in different directions. Buzz. As Zen gently flipped his hands, a ball of extremely thick energy slowly discharged from his cinnabar field. The moment he drew out the ball of energy, the lake under his body sank. I have succeeded in merging the internal momentum again, Zen exclaimed with a joyful look on his face. After all, Zen had merged it once before. Compared to his previous experience, he felt that the difficulty in merging all kinds of internal momentum in his body had been greatly reduced. Now that Zen had stepped into the consummation of true God realm, the internal momentum released from the godly tile was purer and the way's blending energy was more powerful. The truth of cultivation nature has reached a new level as well. With just one more step, the truth of godly way would reach the consummate level. I wonder how it feels like to cross the sea of truth, Zen muttered. Just as Zen descended deep in thought, a water arrow suddenly sprung out from the lake under Zen, directly charging towards him. Phew, the water arrow moved extremely fast. At that moment, Zen was still circulating the truth of cultivation nature, and he only slightly turned his head to the direction where the water arrow came from. It was as if he was looking backward, and had easily dodged it. Swish, 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 more water arrows rose from the lake. In just a blink of an eye, thousands of water arrows flew towards Zen. Their power, however, wasn't strong. Once they hit Zen's body, they were still just water. His body swayed casually, like a willow dancing in the wind. Even if those water arrows were as dense as the rain, they failed to wet Zen's clothes. Zen dodged, and his eyes wandered around with a strange smile. Is it Margaret, or Tia? Despite his powerful soul, he was unable to determine who was manipulating the water arrows. Zen avoided the water arrows and sped away to the surface of the lake. After circling the lake once, his eyes landed on the grass by the lakeside. Whoosh! In a flash, Zen was already on his way to the grass. A person was clutched in his arms as he did so. Hearing the person scream, Zen looked down and was slightly stunned. Yan. Her face was slightly red, and her mouth curved into a sullen pout. She then complained, "You've returned to the fairy palace but didn't even come to see me. Even if you don't want to see me, you should at least miss Jeffrey, right?" Zen returned to the fairy palace a few days ago, but he hadn't stepped into the training tower yet. Previously, when Lavender and Letitia snuck into the divine land, they had arranged all the others to go into the training tower. Taking this opportunity, they also chose to cultivate in seclusion. Looking at Yan's angry face, Zen smiled faintly. Of course, I miss you and Jeffrey. But I heard that you were all cultivating in seclusion, so I didn't want to intrude. Yan couldn't stay mad at her brother. As she got up from the ground, she looked at Zen and said, I didn't expect that you've really stepped into the consummation of the true God realm. This time, you're way ahead of me. Originally, Yan's cultivation was far stronger than Zen's. When Zen was still a proving godly warrior, Yan had already become a top-rank true god. Over the past 10 years, Zen had successfully stepped into the consummation of true God realm, while Yan remained a top-rank true god. Before Zen could even speak, Yan added, but I also feel that my chance of reaching the consummation of true God real is coming soon. I guess you won't be ahead of me for long. Yan's current situation was somehow similar to Zen's. She was in the last stage of the truth of holy words, and once she reached the consummation of true God realm, she was done with the last step and could sail across the sea to reach the other shore. You've always been smarter than me, so I know I'll soon fall right behind you, Zen said with a smile. Ever since they were young, he had always looked up to Yan's talent. But what kind of theurgy did you use to hide just now? Why couldn't I detect you? Yan smiled and said, it's Gus. He controls the entire swirl forest. He easily helped me hide the aura. He controls the swirl forest and can hide people's aura. Zen's eyes narrowed. It's not that strange. Harold can also do it in the Everest Spirit Mountain, said Yan, and she seemed to take it as a normal thing. Yan had stayed in the Everest Spirit Mountain for a long time, so she knew what abilities the controllers of the forbidden areas usually possessed. Back then, she could just freely come and go in the Everest Spirit Mountain and could even control all the beasts in it. It was all thanks to Harold. So that explains it. Zen nodded lightly. Consummate true gods that could control forbidden areas were indeed qualified to fight against holy beings. Let's go back. Jeffrey would be so happy to see you. Yan exclaimed with excitement in her eyes. After all, back in the fairy palace, not only Letitia and his other wives were there, but also Jeffrey, Freya, and Imogen. When they heard that Zen had returned, they came out of the training tower. In the fairy palace, Jeffrey stood in the hall dressed in a long pale purple robe, with a precious belt tied around his waist. He had definitely matured. He had a slight resemblance to Zen, but his temperament was softer. With smart eyes, Jeffrey looked at Zen. Jeffrey. Over the years, they seldom got together. Zen felt a little guilty about that. Every time they reunited, he was always thrilled to see how his son had grown, which was always a surprise. Back then, Jeffrey begged for a chance to wander around the Divine Land. After only 10 years, he had followed Letitia's and Lavender's improvement and had already become a proving godly warrior. Zen thought that it wasn't going to be long before Jeffrey could become a low-rank true god, especially with the guidance of consummate true gods and a demi-holy being in the fairy palace, apart from his own extraordinary talent. If Harold could help him change his blood, then he should be able to step into the Divine Land without needing the protection of the fairy palace. Daddy, how I've missed you after all these years. Do you miss me? Jeffrey asked as he blinked his eyes. There was a hint of sadness in them. Hearing his son's words, Zen even felt more guilty in his heart. He replied, "Of course, I do. Have you brought home a gift for me this time?" Jeffrey chuckled. The sadness in his eyes went away and was soon replaced by a cunning and greedy look. Chapter 2285, Stone Mouse. Fiery anger burned in Letitia's eyes as she glared at Jeffrey and scolded, "Jeffrey, I've told you countless times. You can't be impolite to others, most especially your father." "Well, since he's my father and he hasn't seen me in a long time, then he should give me a gift," Jeffrey retorted with a smile. His face twisted into a serious expression for about 9 seconds, before it lapsed into a lazy grimace. That's right. A father is always generous to his son. Zen's harvest was definitely abundant this time, so he must have something good to give his little man, a voice suddenly interjected. There in the distance was Augustus, who walked forward and winked at Jeffrey. However, a frown stretched upon Letitia's lips. "Gus, don't mess around," she said in annoyance. Over the years, Augustus and Jeffrey had gotten on well with each other. Augustus, however, wasn't as smart as Jeffrey, as the latter had taken many of his treasures by using various tricks. One of those treasures was even handed down from Bromley. That treasure was extremely important to Augustus, but Jeffrey had taken it away. When Hallett knew about the issue, he reprimanded Augustus and took the treasure back from Jeffrey. That incident was still embedded in Augustus' mind, and it made him immensely upset. Yet just now, he helped Jeffrey ask Zen for a gift. Jeffrey is picky. He doesn't like common things, so Zen, you can't give him something ordinary, he added. Father, don't listen to Uncle Augustus, nonsense. I'll accept whatever you will give me, Jeffrey shot back with another smile. Although he said so, everybody understood what he meant. Letitia couldn't help but sigh at his words. On the other hand, Zen didn't mind as he knew very well what Jeffrey was like. Indeed, I shouldn't be so stingy, he answered with a grin. Once he was done speaking, he pointed with his finger, and his space ring glowed faintly. Moments later, a golden snake swam out of it. Meanwhile, the other people in the hall watched as Jeffrey asked his father for a gift, curious about what Zen would take out. As soon as the little golden snake appeared, everyone's eyes were immediately glued onto it. "Zen, what kind of treasure is that?" asked Joy in surprise. On the contrary, Augustus suddenly felt a chill that ran down his spine. His eyes stared directly at the snake, not once leaving it. It was true that he was extremely talented, but he would probably be considered inferior to Hallett if he ever left the Swirl Forest. It was because he had wasted a great deal of his time and talent on some unorthodox skills, such as the puppet manipulating techniques. In addition, he had also been forced to give Jeffrey numerous puppets in the past few years. That was why he felt a powerful attraction towards the snake the moment he saw it. "Zen, that is a puppet snake," he exclaimed excitedly. Everyone was surprised when he lay prone on the ground out of the blue and stared intently at the puppet snake. In terms of craftsmanship, it was a rather ordinary puppet snake. Even Augustus himself could make a puppet that looked similar to a real person. Yet judging from the aura contained in the small, golden snake's body, it was safe to say that it was something that was beyond his knowledge and understanding. "This is a puppet," Zen said and nodded. Augustus carefully touched the little golden snake and muttered, "This is not the gold with a cold light, nor jade gold. I've never seen this kind of material before, and it shouldn't exist in the divine land. What's more, this little snake's eyes are so strange. Where did you get this little golden snake? It's true that this small snake is not from the divine land. It was given to me by a master outside of it," Zen answered with a small smile. Before Zen came back to the divine land, Ramsey, Timotheus, and the others had been worried about him. Thus, they gave him some weapons which could help him in times of need. Ramsey gave Zen 3 thunder talismans, Leopold gave him a pill, and Timotheus gave him the golden snake. "It's beautiful. How powerful is this little thing?" Augustus asked again. To that, Zen blinked and shook his head. "I haven't tried it yet, but I think it can deal with a consummate true god." After all, it was a life-saving object Timotheus had given to him. He had never used it and perhaps, it could be more powerful than he had imagined. Now he thought that it was a good idea to give it to Jeffrey as a protective weapon. When Letitia heard his words, her expression quickly changed and she said, "You should keep such a treasure for defense. You don't have to give it to Jeffrey. It's too..." Before she could even finish, Augustus began to bargain with Jeffrey and did not pay her words any attention. "Jeffrey, can you give this little golden snake to me? I'll give you 10 puppets in exchange." "No way. 20 puppets. No, I can also help you make whatever you want. I can help you make." "No, can you lend me the snake to study? Just for 2 days." As for Zen, he could only smile helplessly as the two bargained with each other. Just then, his lips curved down into a frown. His consciousness entered the space ring, in which there was a mouse corpse whose fur emitted a faint glow. The mouse corpse belonged to the stone mouse that Zen had encountered back when he had just entered the divine land. Master Evil had kept the stone mouse, but the creature had unexpectedly swallowed him and as a result, he had lost his body. After that, the stone mouse tried to devour Zen's cinnabar field, only to be poisoned to death after it swallowed the chaotic energy in Zen's inner world. According to Master Evil, this one-of-a-kind true spirit once helped a true god to become a holy being and could be reincarnated. With the help of the mouse corpse, one could find the reincarnation of the stone mouse. The stone mouse was valuable, even if it was dead. Then again, Zen had gotten many divine might coins later on, so he hadn't sold the mouse corpse. What he didn't expect was that the mouse corpse had some changes today. It meant that the new stone mouse was just born somewhere in the divine land. With that thought, he awakened Master Evil deep in his mind. "What's wrong, Zen? Have you found a body for me?" Master Evil had been sealed for a long time, so he was still in a daze after he woke up. "No," Zen replied. It was true that he did not have a chance to find a body suitable for Master Evil at the bottom of the chaos over the years. "But there is something strange about the mouse corpse," he continued. "That stone mouse, has it been reincarnated?" Master Evil was slightly stunned, and his eyes were immediately filled with excitement. Zen nodded in response. Then, he raised his hand, and the gray stone mouse's corpse fell out of the space ring. Opposite of him were Augustus and Jeffrey, the former still pleading for the golden snake. When he saw the mouse corpse, however, he asked, "Zen, what's that?" Chapter 2286, Gregorio U. Joy looked at the mouse corpse closely. It looked familiar but she couldn't quite remember where she had seen it. Meanwhile, Zen had no intention to directly answer Augustus's question, but instead, he threw him a question of his own. "Gus, do you still have some puppets? The ones that can transform?" He was considering giving Master Evil a puppet he could use for the meantime. It would be impossible to cultivate with a puppet's body, but the puppet made by Augustus would no doubt be powerful since he inherited his skills from Bromley. Zen's question stunned Augustus. "What kind of puppet do you want? Do you want to use it to become a mouse or a snake?" "I want it to become a human being," Zen answered, his voice tinged with impatience. Instead of clarifying things, Zen's answer simply confused Augustus even more. "Are you going to use it yourself?" he asked. He had a number of puppets but it wouldn't be of much use to Zen given his current strength. "A friend, a mid-rank true god, will use it. He has lost his body and is just in his soul form right now," Zen explained. "I see. All right, I got it," he answered. After a short while, a human-shaped puppet appeared in the middle of the hall. The puppet was about 10 feet high and looked very powerful. It had 8 swords in its back and was covered from its neck down to its arms with countless traps and arrays. Zen quickly scanned the puppet from head to toe and sensed several strands of internal momentum emanating from it. This is my masterpiece. It's strong enough to help defeat a top-rank true god and fast enough to run away from a consummate true god, Augustus said, beaming with pride at his work. It kinda looks a bit weird. Don't you have any that looks more normal? It would be better if the puppet looks as normal as Saul, Zen said. Saul's body looked very real, having been made by Bromley's skilled hands. Zen's request had Augustus rolling his eyes. He stretched out his hands and patted the puppet lightly. The puppet then began to morph. Its 10-foot-tall body shrank until it was as tall as a normal person. Its traps and arrays were also now skillfully hidden. Is this enough? Augustus asked. He gestured at the now normal-sized puppet. Even its appearance can change. True enough, the puppet's face also began to change. 1 minute, it looked like a young man and the next, it became a wrinkled, old man. Master Evil, how about we use this puppet as your body for the time being? Zen asked in his mind. Master Evil simply stared at the puppet in astonishment. After cultivating to such a level, Master Evil did not regard a physical body as anything important. The puppet could not improve his cultivation base, but it had the power to defeat a top-rank true god and escape from a consummate true god. Such strength wasn't something Master Evil could imagine. Many mid-rank true gods could only hope to reach such a level of power. Okay, of course it's good, Master Evil agreed immediately. Zen smiled and nodded to Augustus. Not bad. He approached the puppet and was just about to move Master Evil's soul into it when Augustus stopped him. What are you doing? Zen asked. Augustus did not answer and looked at Jeffrey, who was standing not too far away from him. Right now, Jeffrey was thinking about how to control the little golden snake but noticed Augustus staring at him. He quickly put the snake into his space ring and avoided Augustus's gaze. The value of that little golden snake is far beyond that of my puppet. I just hope you can let me study it for a bit, Augustus told Zen. The reason why he did whatever Zen asked was mostly because of that snake. His puppet making and controlling skills had reached their zenith and were almost on par with Bromley's. However, there were still some extraordinary skills within the small, golden snake. Augustus couldn't figure out what these skills were and hoped to study the snake to find out. He also knew Jeffrey's character very well. With the snake in his hands, there was no way that he was going to give it to anybody else. Thus, Augustus could only turn to Zen for help. Zen turned to look at Jeffrey, but before he could even speak, Jeffrey was already on the defensive. I'm not going to give it to you. Jeffrey, since you're under the protection of the uncles and aunts in the fairy palace, that little snake is useless to you right now. Why don't you lend it to Gus for a while? Letitia, his mother, said to him in a soft voice. This boy had been thoroughly spoiled by both Letitia and Imogen, but perhaps he could be persuaded by Letitia. It wasn't easy. It took quite a bit of convincing for Jeffrey to finally relent and throw the golden snake to Augustus. Satisfied with having obtained a precious treasure, Augustus patted the puppet beside him with a smile. This puppet is yours, Zen. May I ask though, who are you going to help make a body? You know him, Zen said with a faint smile. I know him, Augustus thought for a while but couldn't come up with anyone. However, Zen didn't speak anymore. He approached the puppet and released Master Evil's soul from his mind. Whoosh! Master Evil's soul took on the form of a faint ray of grey light that instantly injected itself into the puppet. Soon after, the puppet's face changed. The bridge of its nose rose and became aquiline. It grew grey hair and possessed sharp eyes. It looked very much like a ferocious old man. Augustus pointed at the puppet in astonishment. You are Master Evil. Augustus from the GU clan. Master Evil acknowledged. He and Wayne suffered a lot in the prison due to Augustus's torture methods at the time. Despite knowing that Augustus wouldn't do anything to him now, he still couldn't help but throw a cold look at the man. You have just been released by Zen, right? Why was your physical body destroyed? Augustus asked curiously. Well, this matter has something to do with the stone mouse, Master Evil said, staring at the stone mouse's corpse on the ground. Stone mouse? You mean this mouse? Joy exclaimed in shock. She was still trying to figure out the mouse corpse's origin when she heard what Master Evil said. She finally got an idea when she heard the name Master Evil used to call the mouse. Even Augustus was shocked and his gaze wandered onto the dead mouse. Joy, have you heard of the story of the stone mouse? Zen asked. Joy nodded. It's a one-of-a-kind true spirit, very famous. I have heard of it. In the past, Gregorio Yu of the Yu clan became a holy being with the help of this stone mouse. It is said that this mouse keeps the secret of reincarnation of the entire divine land. Zen's eyebrows rose. The secret of the reincarnation. Back in the universe, he heard of something related to reincarnation. Some living beings were able to experience rebirth and carry the memories of their previous lives. However, none of these legends had ever been confirmed. The stone mouse was very famous in the past. It kept Holy Gregorio company all the time and was said to be even more powerful than a holy being. The U clan was also very powerful since it was the only great clan that was qualified to compete with Nicholas, Joy told them. Chapter 2287, The Evil Ghost Region. Doubt was written all over Zen's face. The powerful U clan. I've never heard of the U clan in the Time Sea, he said. He had come to know a lot about the history of the powerful clans back when he had been in the floating island. During his time there, he had never heard of the U clan. He felt unfamiliar when he first heard the name. Because Nicholas killed them, Harold interjected as he pushed the door open, his eyes transfixed on the mouse's corpse. Most of the younger generation from the powerful clans don't know about the glory of the U clan in the past, or a man named Gregorio U. Besides Zen, Joy nodded and said, right. At that time, Gregorio was powerful enough to challenge Nicholas. Later on, Nicholas was forced to fight him, and subsequently destroyed his universe. After he was killed, his clan's floating island sank into the Time Sea. Since then, Nicholas has made a rule that whoever is surnamed U is not allowed to enter the Time Sea, which is why there are no true gods with the surname U among the powerful clans. Naturally, Zen was shocked, but he asked, Nicholas is such an arrogant man. Was he actually so afraid of a surname? He's made a mountain out of a molehill. All the clans had very few holy beings even when trillions of years had passed. Why was Nicholas afraid that the U clan would have another holy being? Such a thing was almost impossible. Perhaps he was making a mountain out of a molehill, but perhaps he was not, said Harold with a faint smile, and then added, because there is a rumor that Gregorio hasn't died. I've heard about that rumor too, Joy said and nodded as well. Isn't that strange? Last time I checked, the holy beings will die once their universes are destroyed, Zen said in surprise. The reason why holy beings were able to stay alive was that they relied on their universes. Since Gregorio's universe had been destroyed, how could he survive? Generally speaking, it's true, but Gregorio's case is somewhat different. His spiritual beast is the unique stone mouse in the divine land, which has died many times and has been reborn many times, said Harold with a grin. Zen's brows slightly shot upwards as he asked, so you think that Gregorio has been reborn, just like the stone mouse? Well, yes, Harold answered. Truth be told, they didn't live in the same era as Gregorio did. Yet although Nicholas had banned everything related to the U clan, he couldn't affect the other holy beings. Things about the U clan in the past had been recorded and passed down from generation to generation. For example, Joy knew about the existence of the U clan in an important book. The book contained drawn pictures of the stone mouse, which was why she was familiar with the mouse's corpse. What? How come there are so many hidden stories behind this mouse? Master Evil exclaimed. How did he not know about such things? He knew the origin of the stone mouse, but he had no idea that Gregorio was behind that mouse. But you said the stone mouse was as powerful as a holy being. Back in the cave of the vast sky region, it was just as strong as a mid-rank true god, Zen said in confusion. With a flick of Harold's finger, the mouse's corpse on the ground floated towards his hand. The corpse shimmered with a faint, orange light. The stone mouse and Gregorio died together in the past. After the mouse was reborn, it was as strong as a demi-holy being. After Nicholas killed it, it was weakened again until it was just like a consummate true god. Later, it was said that it was reborn in a first-tier clan. After it underwent multiple deaths, it is now as powerful as a mid-rank true god, Harold explained. Some internal momentum spread out of his hand as he spoke, which merged with the orange light from the stone mouse. The two combined together and formed a unique image in his head. After a short while, light flashed across his eyes. He turned to the main entrance of the hall and said, "The Evil Ghost Region in the south." The Evil Ghost Region? Zen thought for a moment, and then said, "It's said that the Abyss Demon Region is linked to the Evil Ghost Region." Harold nodded. The reborn stone mouse is on the edge of the junction of the Evil Ghost Region and the Abyss Demon Region, which is very strange. Why was it reborn in that place? He wondered. The Abyss Demon Region and the Time Sea Forbidden Land were the most mysterious among the numerous forbidden lands in the Divine Land. Yet because the Time Sea Forbidden Land was located in the center of the Time Sea, the vast majority of divine citizens didn't know that such a forbidden land existed within their territory. The situation in the Abyss Demon Region, however, was different. The Abyss Demon Region had gathered the resentment of almost all the living beings in the Divine Land, and there were even many different legends about it. Over the years, the Abyss Demon region had expanded quite fast, until it had occupied 3 other regions. Furthermore, it was still expanding at a high speed. After a few moments, Harold returned the stone mouse to Zen. In turn, Zen also released a strand of internal momentum and merged it with the orange light just like what Harold did. Then, an illusionary picture appeared in his mind. In the image, his consciousness seemed to have traveled through most of the places in the Divine Land and entered the Evil Ghost region. In the depths of the bleak plain was a huge crack. The crack stretched long, and the Abyss Demon region was located at its end. The Abyss Demon region was an abyss that spanned several regions. Dark green smoke rose from the depths of the abyss and blocked all the views of the Abyss Demon region. The divine citizens outside were unable to see the depths of the abyss, and because of this, the Abyss Demon region appeared terrifyingly mysterious. Soon enough, he opened his eyes and said, "I want to go to the Evil Ghost region." "Is it too dangerous to go out now?" A voice from his side chimed in. It was Letitia, who had been sitting quietly beside him. She felt uneasy when she heard that Zen planned to leave. She didn't know much about the Divine Land, only that her husband had quite a lot of enemies there. The last time he left, there had been no news of him for 10 years. She was afraid that one day, he would really disappear. The powerful clans can't enter the Soul Wilderness, the Everest Spirit Mountain, and the Swirl Forest right now, so they'll probably go to the Abyss Demon region. Joy fretted as well. "I think Zen can make a trip to the Evil Ghost region," Harold opined with a small smile and then continued, "he would have no problems protecting himself with his current strength. Moreover, although it is adjacent to the Abyss Demon region, its entrance is in the Red Lotus region, which is very far away from the Evil Ghost region. There was usually only one entrance to each forbidden land. There was no way to enter the Abyss Demon region from the Evil Ghost region, and the transmission arrays of the powerful clans on the floating islands were also connected to the entrance of the Red Lotus region. Besides, Zen had the mountain token in his hand. Even if the opponent found any trace of him, he would be able to return to the fairy palace immediately by using the mountain token." When Letitia heard that Harold was in favor of Zen going to the Evil Ghost region, she could only lower her head and fidget with the hem of her clothes. Her eyes were filled with loneliness. Now, she was no longer the mighty leader of the Cloud Hall that she used to be. She had already fallen too far behind Zen. She couldn't stand the comparisons with him anymore. Most of the time, she could only choose to be silent in order to avoid being a hindrance to him. Chapter 2288, Yellow Emperor Magatama. In the northern side of the Divine Land. After passing through the Dark Rise Mountain and crossing the north boundary, one would reach the North Star region. Once a very prosperous and big region, the North Star region produced many strong warriors. It was a place with many outstanding talents. But in the recent several divine eras, it had become a dead zone. The death aura emitted by the lofty tree killed all the living beings in the North Star region. Due to its lack of use and maintenance, it slowly collapsed. In the midst of the surging death aura, Hamish quietly descended. As soon as he landed, the death aura gathered from all directions like a hyena that just found its meal. HMPH. Suddenly, Hamish's body shook slightly, and an invisible force spread out from his body. The deathly aura that had gathered together then began to disperse. He then looked into the distance. The lofty tree, which was as high as 330,000 miles, was partly visible from where he stood. After locating the tree's position, Hamish activated the grand teleportation and moved towards it. After a while, Hamish appeared on the biggest branch right at the center of the lofty tree. Countless dark red silk threads spread throughout that branch and wrapped 4 giant crimson spheres. Inside each sphere was a faint shadow of a person. "Hamish, has something happened in the Divine Land recently?" A cold voice from one of the spheres said. Hamish gently cupped his hands towards each sphere and replied, "This time, we are certainly in trouble." "Trouble? That Harper has been cursed and is trapped in the Sunset Tree. That woman named Lorena is on the verge of dying. She only has a head left. What kind of trouble can't you solve in the Divine Land?" A daunting voice came from another sphere. "Yes, you're the only other Shore Realm warrior left in this vast Divine Land. You manage the entire Divine Land by yourself. And still, you caused us trouble. You're such a waste." A scornful speech was heard from another sphere. The red spheres were the mixed element seals that Harper had cast. All the mixed element seals relied on the lofty tree. They needed the life force they got from the tree to maintain the spell of the seals. Therefore, the mixed element seals were difficult to break. They had managed to seal the Yellow Emperor guards to this day. The 3 people who spoke were Xavier Poo, Salim Hu, and Lorcan Za. They all were 2-star Yellow Emperor guards, and their strength was higher than that of Hamish. Back then, because Hamish was still slightly weaker, the mixed element seal that bound him was also weaker, which made him possible to break the seal and escape. Those 3 Yellow Emperor guards had been trapped there for so many divine eras. It went without saying that they were very miserable. Every time they saw Hamish, they always felt jealous. They could only mock him and wished that they could switch place with him. Hamish only ignored them. Instead, he cupped his hands towards the biggest sphere and said, "Layton. Just say it. What happened in the Divine Land?" A calm voice was heard from the largest sphere. The Yellow Emperor guard who was sealed in that specific sphere was Layton Pang. He was the leader of the group of Yellow Emperor guards, and also the only 3-star Yellow Emperor guard. "Some people from the outside are coming," Hamish replied with caution. "People from the outside?" Astonishment was evident in Layton Pang's voice. Meanwhile, Xavier Poo, Salim Hu, and Lorcan Za couldn't keep their calm upon hearing Hamish's words. "People from the outside, huh? How strong are they? Where are they from? How many are there? Have you checked them out yourself?" If it was just another kind of crisis that broke out in the Divine Land, then it wouldn't be a big problem. With their strength, they could solve it. But if strong warriors from the outside got involved, it was a different story. "All of you, shut up," Layton Pang reproached. The other 3 Yellow Emperor guards immediately fell silent. The silence in the surroundings was deafening. "Hamish, you can go on," said Layton Pang. "There's more than a dozen people and one of them is a 5-star 9-Li guard," Hamish said flatly. That revelation caused the other Shore Realm warriors within the 4 spheres to stay quiet. After a long while, Layton Pang spoke again. "How did this happen?" Hamish looked distressed. "According to your plan, the simplest way is to let the Divine Land crash so that these mixed element seals are destroyed once and for all. But it was stopped by Lorena's son. He has been gone for 10 years, and now, he has returned and brought a group of other Shore Realm warriors from the outside. The outside, the world of chaos is vast. How could he have possibly met other warriors at the other Shore Realm? And a 9-Li guard? Such bad luck," muttered Xavier Poo. "What a coincidence." Hamish shook his head. "And these people are trying to open a space channel." Layton Pang said with a bitter smile, "We did the same thing back then. It seems like they will be able to enter the Divine Land in a few years' time. What should we do now?" Salim Hu couldn't help but ask. The 4 of them were powerful masters at the other Shore Realm, but a 9-Li guard also wasn't someone to be underestimated. The Divine Land originally belonged to Chiyu. Once those people from the outside barged in, the Yellow Emperor guards could only imagine how bad they would all end. "I've already told them to prepare a backup plan," Hamish said blandly. The first plan was to destroy the Divine Land. Once it had crashed, the mixed element seals could not rely on the lofty tree anymore, and they would eventually collapse. The second plan was to find a way to take control of the Abyss Demon region and forcefully tear up the mixed element seals using the power of that region. That plan was rather complicated. After all, a forbidden area like the Abyss Demon region wasn't that easy to be controlled. Take control of the Abyss Demon region. Do those holy beings have the confidence to accomplish this task? Asked Layton Pang. Hamish thought for a while before he answered. Right now, Nicholas has almost ruled the Time Sea. With so many holy beings doing the job together, the chances of success are high. Xavier Poo heaved a deep sigh and said, "Even if the seals are removed, I'm afraid that it will not help. We don't stand a chance against the 5-star 9-Li guard." Hearing his words, everyone fell silent, even including Layton Pang. Indeed, even if the mixed element seals were removed, the 5 Yellow Emperor guards wouldn't be able to do anything but escape. Even the strongest among them, Layton Pang, was only a 3-star Yellow Emperor guard. The gap in terms of strength was a stretch. After a while, Layton Pang stated flatly, "We still have a chance." "How?" Hamish asked curiously. "Use my Yellow Emperor Magatama to turn to chaos for help. We can gather the nearest Yellow Emperor guards to come and help," he replied. A strange expression crept on Hamish's face upon hearing Layton Pang's suggestion. The Yellow Emperor Magatama was a necessary token for all of the Yellow Emperor guards. Through its power, they could summon each other in times of need. However, it only usually happened in the Source world. Using the Yellow Emperor Magatama to gather the other Yellow Emperor guards in the vast chaos. The possibility of its success was so little that it was practically insignificant in the matter. Chapter 2289, The Call. Layton, right now, the Divine Land has almost hit the bottom. It's extremely desolate even compared with the chaos, Xavier said with a giggle. It's completely meaningless to use the Yellow Emperor Magatama. Layton didn't take his words and didn't listen, but instead, he said to Hamish, "Do as I say." Don't miss any chance. Hamish was considered to be the weakest among the 5 Yellow Emperor guards. The rest had more or less alienated him, but Layton had always taken good care of him. Now that Layton tasked him something important, he nodded and said, "I will do as you ordered." When he was on his trip to the lofty tree in the north, some people on the Time Sea had already begun to move. Most of the true gods of the alliance of powerful clans had been exploring the Abyss Demon region during the past 10 years, so they had a further understanding and knowledge about it. However, their actions were at the expense of the lives of their peers. There were countless talented elites in the powerful clans, but it was a fat price to pay. They would be torn apart by the monsters lurking around the Abyss Demon region if they weren't careful enough. Many true gods of humble birth grumbled and were discontented with this current situation. In the past, the members of the alliance of powerful clans could freely go to the Everest Spirit Mountain and the Swirl Forest. These 2 forbidden lands were extremely dangerous, but they could get countless divine might coins while ensuring their safety in the places that they were familiar with. But more than 10 years ago, Harold appeared. He suddenly came forward and forbade them to go to the Everest Spirit Mountain. The worst thing that happened was, just few years ago, the Swirl Forest was sealed. The purpose for sealing the Swirl Forest remained a mystery to them. They didn't even know who had ruled it. As a result, they could only go to the Abyss Demon region, and the risks there were known to increase exponentially. Despite the risks, as long as they were careful enough and didn't enter the second stage of the Abyss Demon region, they would still get a lot of treasures. After all, the Abyss Demon region was the biggest forbidden land. But now, it was said that even the Abyss Demon region had also been sealed. Have all the transmission channels leading to the Abyss Demon region been closed? Why is the Abyss Demon region also sealed? Could it be that someone has taken control of it? Come on, it's simply impossible for anyone to control the Abyss Demon region. You know, those fiends at the bottom can even devour the holy beings. A heated discussion arose as numerous true gods gathered in front of the transmission arrays of the powerful clans on the floating islands. Each one of them had spoken their own thoughts about it. Even the guards who were guarding the transmission arrays thought that it was unreasonable. But this was the order of the holy beings. They didn't have the capability to disobey such an order. Meanwhile in the Golden Rain Hall, all the holy beings of the alliance of the powerful clans had gathered. There were also many consummate true gods. Nicholas had an unprecedented sense of crisis. It started the moment he saw the powerful masters outside the divine land in the Murphy universe. There were 2 reasons for him to reach his current position. One was because of his talents and efforts, and the other was that he had the support of Hamish. The only thing he could do now was to try his best to take control of the Abyss Demon region, remove the mixed element seals of the remaining Yellow Emperor guards, and then use some methods like the ruling slate. Perhaps, he still had a chance in this way. "Everyone, you should have known why I summoned you here," Nicholas spoke, as the crowd's attention was turned to him. "There are 4 forbidden lands, but 3 of them are not under our control. We can't let the last one fall into the hands of Harold and his fellows. I hope that one of you can become the ruler of the Abyss Demon region." As soon as Nicholas finished his last words, the eyes of many consummate true gods present suddenly lit up. Starting from the time when one became a top-rank true god, it was as difficult as crossing a natural chasm to reach a higher level in cultivation. The chance of becoming a demi-holy being or even a holy being could only be found by accident. It was deemed to be almost impossible. If they were able to obtain the opportunity to control the Abyss Demon region, they would probably improve their cultivation greatly and become comparable to holy beings. For this opportunity, who would miss it? Nicholas, at the end of his words, had his eyes fallen on Lowell and Troy. In the past, the best person in Nicholas's heart was Troy. However, Lowell's performance in recent years really shocked him. His opinion about the position eventually got swayed precariously between the two. "You have already been to the Abyss Demon region before. I think you should be very clear about how dangerous it is. We will set out in half a month. You can make preparations during this period of time," Nicholas reminded and gave further instructions. As soon as he finished speaking, a faint voice suddenly resounded from outside of the floating island. "Holy Nicholas, since you have something important to discuss, why don't you invite me?" Haha, Samuel didn't dare to set foot on the floating island of the Dongfang clan. He could only float outside and send his voice in. Murphy, Jeremiah and the rest of the holy beings knitted their brows upon hearing his voice. With a sneer, Clark said, "This guy wants to take a share again. He should know he's not welcome since we didn't invite him. But he still comes here in person." Nicholas, on the other hand, had no reason to shut the door on Samuel. After all, Samuel was a holy being. He still spoke in a polite manner. "I'm so sorry, Samuel. Suddenly the incident happened, and I forgot to invite you. Please come inside." Right after, the space fluctuated and Samuel had come out of the space channel. Behind him, there were consummate true gods of the Han clan, including Alfredo. "What a surprise, Samuel. It has only been about 10 years, yet your daughters and son have stepped into the consummation of true god realm." Jeremiah's gaze focused on the two girls behind Alfredo with amazement. There was an unbelievable expression on his face. Nicholas, and even the other holy beings, showed a little astonishment on their faces. The two daughters were Laquisha and Elena, and the son was Pascal. The three of them had followed Alfredo with a stiff, indifferent and blank expression showing on their faces. 10 years ago, Pascal, Laquisha and Elena had been ranked first or second among their peers in the arena of legends. Of all the disciples of powerful clans on the floating islands, they were considered the most gifted people. Reaching the consummation of true god realm was undeniably not an easy thing to achieve. Only a few had made it. Zen was one who had been successful in a span of 10 years, which quite surprised other consummate true gods. And now, there came 3 consummate true gods of the Han clan. When was it so easy to cultivate consummate true gods? Samuel cupped one hand in the other and said respectfully, "I'm glad that my daughters and son have made great achievements in martial arts. Now that you are going to conquer the Abyss Demon region, I'd like to ask for an opportunity. Would you give me this opportunity, Holy Nicholas?" Before Nicholas could utter a response, Jeremiah shook his head and said, "I'm afraid we can't trust you." Samuel had planned to unite with the Leng clan by marriage. He wanted to join the alliance of powerful clans through this way. But because of Zen's appearance, Langston of the Leng clan had a big conflict with Laquisha. The result was that their marriage was cancelled. This time, Langston had just become a top-ranked true god, while the two daughters of the Han clan had reached the consummation of true god realm. This turn of events had quite upset him. Chapter 2290, The Participation of Samuel. This time, Nicholas was determined to gain control of the entire Abyss Demon region. He had already gathered so many holy beings and consummate true gods for this purpose. Inviting the Han clan was already unnecessary considering the clan's ambiguous attitude and stand in the whole matter. Laquisha floated to the front of a high platform and stared at Jeremiah. "Uncle Jeremiah, it was my fault for destroying the engagement, but to be honest, Langston's talent is too poor and he isn't really a good match for me." As soon as she finished speaking, she quickly retreated and flew towards the consummate true gods below. She held onto the arm of one of them and leaned into his shoulder. She looked up at Jeremiah and gave him a smile. "Uncle Jeremiah, don't you think this consummate true god and I are well matched?" This consummate true god was Cedric Leng and was also Jeremiah's most excellent son. Cedric couldn't help but freeze when Laquisha leaned onto his shoulder. It was extremely rare for a girl to become a consummate true god, even among the powerful clans on the floating islands. When Joy and Estelle broke through and became consummate true gods, they had a lot of trouble fending off countless pursuers who professed their love for them. Later on, Rochelle also reached the consummation of true god realm. However, it was already well known that Rochelle was very ambitious. She had no intention of finding a man and showed disdain for married life. Laquisha, on the other hand, was both beautiful and elegant enough to make people fall in love with her at first sight. Her curly hair smelled so good and Cedric couldn't help but feel an immediate attraction towards her. Jeremiah was quite surprised at Laquisha's actions. "I have said that if the Leng clan and the Han clan were to forge an alliance, then the best way to do it was through marriage. I was willing to go for such an arrangement before, but the current circumstances are not ideal for a wedding right now. We are slated to go to the Abyss Demon region in half a month and I don't think we'll have enough time." Samuel and Jeremiah had made an agreement for Laquisha and Langston's marriage in order to forge an alliance between their clans. With this marriage, the Han clan would automatically join the alliance of the powerful clans as per the rules. The Lu clan and Xie clan also made use of this strategy in order to join the alliance in the past. "Since we don't have the time, we can discuss the marriage first. It can be held after our return from the Abyss Demon region. What do you think, Jeremiah?" Samuel asked. Many of the consummate true gods showed a trace of contempt upon hearing Samuel's words. Samuel would let his daughter marry some random man just so he could enter the Abyss Demon region. Such a way of doing things was disgusting. Jeremiah retained his polite smile. "I don't care so long as you keep your promise. However, whether your clan can join the alliance or not depends entirely on Nicholas." Ultimately, Nicholas was the leader of the alliance of the powerful clans and the decision of accepting the Han clan or not lay in his hands. Nicholas simply looked at Samuel indifferently. When the Han clan entered the Time Sea, they immediately made a lot of achievements. At that time, Nicholas tried to build a good relationship with Samuel in order to convince him to join the alliance of powerful clans. However, Samuel refused his invitation with no second glances. He wasn't someone who was willing to condescend to others. Ever since then, Nicholas tried his best to suppress the Han clan, though he did not necessarily do anything cruel to them. In the last few decades though, Samuel's attitude considerably changed, which made Nicholas doubtful and wary. His wariness caused him to hesitate in allowing the Han clan to join the alliance of the powerful clans. It's going to be a long journey for us this time. If the Han clan can make a contribution to our alliance, then it wouldn't be too bad, Nicholas said with a smile. Samuel practically beamed and cupped his hands towards Nicholas. Thank you. Our Han clan will wholeheartedly devote ourselves to the alliance. What he said made the consummate true gods despise him even more. Different clans had different levels of power. It was just a fact that some clans were stronger than the others. In the end though, all of them were still equal. Even Nicholas, who was the leader of the alliance, held no superiority over the other holy beings. Samuel saying that they would devote themselves wholeheartedly to the alliance was only because he wanted to be overly flattering. Wait a minute, Samuel, Clark said. Your elder daughter's marriage has been arranged, but your younger daughter has also reached the age of marriage. Why not consider my son as an in-law? The one Clark referring to was Walton. Not long ago, Walton had withstood a punch from Zen. Most of his power had gotten dissolved into the ground and he sustained several serious injuries. Fortunately, he gradually recovered after being treated for a long time. Hearing his father's words, Walton quickly cast a glance at Elena from the Han clan. She was only a young girl 10 years ago but had now grown up to become quite a beautiful lady. Her charm differed from that of Lucretia since Elena seemed to have a sweet, lively personality. Samuel's eyes flashed upon hearing Clark's sudden request. That would be up to my daughter, he said with a smile on his face. I agree, Elena responded indifferently as soon as Samuel finished speaking. She didn't even look at Walton. It was as if this marriage had nothing to do with her. This attitude of her made Clark quite suspicious. However, he kept it to himself in the meantime. We can discuss it after we return from the Abyss Demon region. What do you think, Clark? Samuel asked. That's great, Clark agreed with a smile. He'd take this time to observe things before they formalized anything. Rocher returned to his residence after leaving Golden Rain Hall. He lived in a small, separate, white jade palace, which was a luxury since most true gods were eager to have such a place on the floating island. He opened the door and was suddenly greeted by a tight hug from behind him. A woman in plain clothes had rushed over and held him tightly. What's wrong, Iris? He asked, gently stroking the woman's arms which wrapped around his waist. Can I go with you? Iris asked. Her soft voice stunned Rocher, but a trace of determination appeared in his eyes. Iris, you remember our rule. Iris was not allowed to interfere with his affairs. She had kept this promise for years. After entering the floating island, Iris would merely stay in the palace and did not go anywhere. No one exactly knew where Rocher went and what he did, much less Iris. After a moment's silence, a trace of sadness appeared on the young woman's face. Don't be willful, Rocher said, getting her arms off him before turning around with a smile. Iris stared at him and shook her head. But you promised me that you would take me with you forever. I'm scared that you might not return this time. How come? Rocher asked with a laugh, rubbing Iris's nose. However, there was no hint of humor on her face. She trusted her gut feeling on this matter very much. Even if I know you will do something bad to our Dongfang clan, I don't care. You can't leave me alone. Rocher's heart skipped a beat and a trace of panic appeared on his originally calm face. Chapter 2291, Heading South. Iris had always done and accomplished what Rocher asked her to do throughout all the years that passed. But she was not completely blind. From the time Rocher entered the floating island and until he rose in fame, she had always felt that her husband had a plan. She might not be clear about his true standpoint or intention, but that didn't mean that she couldn't figure it out. Dongfang is only my last name. I only have you in my eyes. You are my everything and know that I will always stand behind you, Iris said firmly. Rocher stared at his wife, looking pained and conflicted. He had always been determined and had never doubted his belief. But now, his perspective seemed to crumble and he began to doubt his motives. The woman standing in front of him was the wife he had always been with. But he was working for a holy being he had never even seen before. The boundary between right and wrong in his heart started to blur. Maybe it was a better choice to stay in the Dongfang clan and work for Nicholas. Rocher shook his head and threw such unrealistic idea out of his mind. Only the holy beings, demi-holy beings, and consummate true gods are allowed to go to the Abyss Demon region, Rocher uttered softly. The transmission gates leading to the Abyss Demon region were already sealed, so no other true god was allowed to enter. If you go and ask for the permission of Holy Nicholas, he will make an exception, Iris still urged. Rocher still shook his head and explained, the Abyss Demon region is too dangerous. I can't protect you. But, Iris still wished to strive for the chance to go with her husband. However, Rocher wasn't willing. He swiftly pulled her into his arms and whispered, let's drop it. I will definitely come back. In his eyes, the situation had not progressed to that stage. The godly geniuses weren't gathered yet, and Harold had not personally made his move. For the meantime, he only needed to follow his plan. If there was a chance, it would be best if he could take control of the Abyss Demon region. He had hoped that he could get rid of the fate of death by taking advantage of the Abyss Demon region. At the outermost part of the swirl forest, a 1,000-foot-long black python was moving rapidly. It soon wrapped its body around a thick trunk. Preparing for a move, it suddenly opened its mouth, and rushed towards another figure. It was Zen. Zen was well aware of the black python's movement, but he just stood still, showing no intention of making a move. As the python was getting closer to where he was, a thunderous sound instantly came from not too far away. Crack, 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 a puppet of 2 meters high had rushed over to attack against the black python. 2 extraordinary long swords were seen to be embedded in the puppet's hands. Lightning arcs continuously circled around its arms until they reached the swords. Phew, phew, the python was instantly hit by the 2 long swords, its body immediately reeked of burning. The puppet rolled over with the help of the 2 long swords and chopped on its opponent's body. Dong, the 10-foot-wide body of the python was cut off. Its head and its broken body rolled wildly, creating deep ditches on the ground. Click, click, the puppet then put away the 2 swords on its back. Its arms began to contract, and its height rapidly shrank. In no time, it turned into an old man with a fierce look on his face. The puppet was no other than Master Evil. How do you feel? Zen asked with a smile. Ha ha, Master Evil laughed, a hint of complacency could be heard along his laughter. He naturally felt extremely good at this moment. He had been using the puppet as his body for a period of time. The longer he used it, the more amazing he felt it was. He was only a warrior from the vast sky region, while the puppet, which was created by Augustus, was not to be underestimated even in the powerful clans on the floating islands. He even felt that it was difficult to fully exploit the potential of the puppet with his own ability. Ahead is the Cyan Demon region. Are you sure you don't want to follow me to the Evil Ghost region? Zen asked. Master Evil thought for a while and shook his head firmly. Back then, he had accidentally obtained the unhatched stone mouse and had been interested about its story and the legend circulating about it. Now that he knew the origin and secret of the stone mouse, he gave up the idea of getting it. Such a thing was not what he deserved to obtain. Even if Zen was kind enough to share some benefits with him, probably he still wouldn't have the luck to enjoy them. I won't go to the Evil Ghost region. Isn't Wayne in the Cyan Demon region? Ha ha, I'm going to meet him. Master Evil said in laughter. Master Evil and Wayne had both been imprisoned in the dungeon for a very long time, which bonded them to become friends. He thought that his strength this time was already far more powerful than that of Wayne. The body of the puppet was also enough to show off in front of that guy, so he planned to meet with him. Most importantly, the Cyan Demon region's location was near the Swirl Forest. If something awful would really happen in the Divine Land, he might still be able to flee back to the Swirl Forest where he could take shelter. This was his plan for the incoming occurrences in the near future. After the talk, they both walked out of the Swirl Forest. Zen parted with Master Evil. He then activated the grand teleportation and headed to the south. Before leaving the fairy palace, he had spent a lot of time and effort persuading Letitia to stay in the palace. It was deemed worthwhile since Letitia had looked better than before. After persuading Letitia to stay, he had trouble with Margaret, who was more difficult to deal with. She was persistent to follow, and talking to her gave him a lot of headache. She had never even given him a chance to say anything as she insisted on going along with him to the Evil Ghost region. Margaret was a godly genius, a critical figure to complete his father's plan. Although her current strength was not weak, it was better for her to stay in the fairy palace and cultivate with joy. It took much time with persuasion, and eventually, Zen finally made her agree to stay in the fairy palace. Lavender and Aura on the other hand didn't say much, but he knew that they were disappointed. However, he was not qualified to enjoy life with his wives because of the current situation. He only hoped that they could understand him. Both Harold and Hallett had already left the fairy palace before Zen did. The godly geniuses who sneaked into the divine land were scattered throughout the land. Harold's goal was to find the godly geniuses back from the vast divine land. On behalf of the GU clan, Hallett went to meet the Moon clan in the hidden tree. The Sword clan already had an agreement to ally with Harold, and although they didn't completely go against the alliance of the powerful clans on the floating islands, they had made their attitudes clear. And now, the only task remaining to accomplish was to know the attitude of the Moon clan. After using the grand teleportation several times, Zen quickly crossed the Cyan Demon region. Next to the Cyan Demon region was the Windwood region. He swiftly entered the Windwood region. Looking around, he noticed that the place was covered with lush greenery. The whole world was full of vitality. The plants he saw around were so lush that it was beyond his imagination. What a strong life force. So that's how it is. There are 2 Godly Way tablets in the middle of the Windwood region. They are the Life Godly Way tablet and Cyan Wood Godly Way tablet. The area covered by the internal momentum of these 2 Godly Way tablets is not very large, but it is enough to affect the entire environment of the region. Zen muttered to himself as he scanned the area. Without hesitation, he directly moved towards the 2 Godly Way tablets. It was not an easy thing to collect the Godly Way tablets of the 3,000 Godly Ways. During his journey to the south, he had seen a lot of Godly Way tablets in the large regions along the way. As he headed to the south, he naturally wouldn't miss the opportunity to absorb the internal momentum in the Godly Way tablets. Chapter 2292, Mistaken for the Enemy. The Godly Way tablets had always been regarded as cultivation resources in the Divine Land. And apart from a tiny number of the 3,000 Godly Way tablets, the rest of them were controlled by all sorts of forces. The Thunderstorm Godly Way tablet was under the control of the Fang clan, which had a powerful floating island above the Time Sea. No outsiders dared object to this. But a few Godly Way tablets were occupied by some first-tier and even second-tier clans. Other clans were envious of the profit that the Godly Way tablets had brought. It would obviously cause disputes. Wars, even. A few hours later, the jungle that had seemed so endless to Zen disappeared suddenly, replaced by a mysterious grassland. Lush green grass grew at an incredible speed, and then withered and turned yellow just as quickly. And then, from the dead grass, new grass continued to sprout, and the cycle repeated over and over again. The entire expanse of this grassland constantly turned from green to yellow, and yellow to green in a circle. Ordinary grass usually flourishes and withers once every year. But the grass here flourishes and withers so quickly. Zen muttered as he stared at the grassland. This looked magical, but on second thought, Zen understood the meaning of all this. This place derived its power from the Life Godly Way tablet. The grass grew faster than normal since it was driven by the life force. This was also why it reached the end of its life ahead of time and withered rapidly. Not long after he walked along the grassland, a huge cyan-colored stone tablet appeared in the distance. This powerful life force was so strong that it was showing its effect on Zen even from such a distance. On the other side of this first stone tablet, stood another huge stone tablet. It was the Cyan Wood Godly Way tablet, and on the other side of this Cyan Wood Godly Way tablet stood a row of lush trees. These 2 Godly Way tablets were only 1,000 feet apart. Zen wasn't surprised. The Infinity Ruler had created a scene that lingered in his mind, in which the 2 Godly Way tablets were close to each other. Zen had previously thought that if these 2 Godly Way tablets were to have people guarding them, he would give them some Divine Might coins to get closer. And then once he finished absorbing the 2 Godly Ways, he could make a quick exit. But Zen looked surprised as he got near to the Godly Way tablets. There was not a single true god around these 2 Godly Way tablets. Previously, there had been quite a few true gods around the Thunderstorm Godly Way tablet, and the Fang clan had specially sent people to guard it. There were many martial artists practicing the Life Godly Way and the Cyan Wood Godly Way in the Divine Land. It was hard to believe that no one had come to comprehend them. It seemed almost illogical. But a voice rang out just as Zen approached the Godly Way tablets. Outsiders are not allowed to approach the Godly Way tablets. Get out of here if you don't want to die. Zen frowned. The sound emanated from the ground, but there was no true god lurking there. Thanks to Zen's powerful soul, even consummate true gods could not escape his detection. And this warning seemed strange to Zen. Zen did not heed this warning. Instead, he continued to approach the Godly Way tablets. One more step and you will die. The warning rang out again. Zen stared at the green grass below him. He muttered, "It looks like someone is using the grass to send these messages." The actual person who was speaking these warnings wasn't hiding here. They were only using the vegetation voice transmission, a theurgy of the Cyan Wood Godly Way, to transmit their voice through the vegetation around Zen. It was only a small trick. "I am just observing the Godly Way tablets. I will do nothing harmful," Zen replied. He then approached the Godly Way tablets calmly. To his surprise, the moment he took a step forward, he felt a wave emerging and rolling off the ground. Rumble. Long wooden sticks with sharp thorns on them popped out of the soil and came zooming towards Zen one after the other. The thorns on these long wooden sticks glowed with a faint green light. They looked toxic. Zen's body became a flash as he dodged these thorny sticks with ease. He wasn't afraid of these sticks, nor of the poison on the thorns. But the fact that whoever was attacking was doing so without investigating still made him furious. "I said I just wanted to observe the Godly Way tablets. If you still want to attack me, don't blame me for retaliating." Zen had barely finished talking when more thorny sticks broke through the earth and came straight for him. His eyes flashed as he twisted his body and threw himself at these sticks. He suddenly fell, cutting through the air. Crack! The thorny sticks hadn't caused any harm to Zen when they had touched him. Instead, they had all broken clean, and Zen parted through the broken pieces to fall. The moment Zen landed, a powerful force poured into the ground. The soil here was soft, and Zen's force had now created a huge crater 1,000 feet wide. The ground around it seemed to ripple, spreading with each passing minute. And then, the entire place seemed to sink into silence. Zen glanced at the Godly Way tablets and walked forward again. This time, he saw that there were a number of cyan arrows flying towards him from the distant forest. "Go to perdition," Zen said, finally somewhat annoyed. In a flash, Zen moved to the front of the jungle. As he pulled out his sword, it formed a sword radiance that was 10,000 feet wide. It shot forward with a mighty rumble. The sword light cut off tens of thousands of towering trees as it flew. It traveled for miles around, causing a countless number of towering trees to collapse. It looked like a complete mess. Screams emerged from the mess that these fallen trees had created, with people constantly flying past them. These people were fast, and they used the wood invisible theurgy of the Cyan Wood Godly Way to blend in with the trees. But they still couldn't escape Zen's perception. Zen glanced over the forest with his spiritual sense and was surprised. Thousands of true gods were hidden in there. It looked like it was a big clan. Zen didn't want to kill too many people and commit a sin for no reason. He only wanted to teach these guys a little lesson. But just as he turned around to approach the Godly Way tablets, a voice from the jungle sounded out. "The warrior sent by the Mo clan is too powerful. Let's fight it out with all our might. Form the cyan tree array to suppress him." The moment the voice had faded away, bits of cyan light shot up into the sky. The true gods hiding in the forest had collectively released their internal momentum. These streams of internal momentum connected with each other and formed a mysterious array. The forest was now integrated into one whole with the connection of the internal momentum and had now turned into a huge beast. Zen was finally a little flustered, now that he was facing the pressure of the surging internal momentum. According to what he had heard, it seemed that he had been mistaken for the enemy that the Mo clan had sent here. Zen was not afraid of the cyan tree array. But he knew that once the opponents formed an array, it meant trouble for him. Chapter 2293, Unexpected Discovery. Gusts of air whistled past the 9 top-ranked true gods who stood in the air in the center of the forest. Various streams of internal momentum that were deep or shallow gathered from all directions and closely connected with the 9 top-ranked true gods. Their clan thrived for many generations and had long inhabited the Windwood region. During the remote ages, it was considered a big clan and it even had 2 demi-holy beings. But when the time came to compete for the qualification to become a holy being, the 2 demi-holy beings of their clan perished in the mountain of holy beings along with many others. Ever since those deaths, everyone couldn't help but notice that their clan began to decline. It got even worse when the only consummate true god the clan had died in the last divine era. Their clan declined faster. It was bad enough that they lost the protection of their consummate true god, and now, they were about to lose even the 2 Godly Way tablets they relied on for a living. Many clans coveted the Godly Way tablets but none wanted it more than the Mo clan, a second tier from the Windwood region. They attacked the clan time and time again and came back stronger each time. Even though their clan no longer had the same power they wielded before, the demi-holy beings left them with the cyan tree array. If thousands of people from their large clan cooperated at once, they could even put up a decent fight against a consummate true god. Even though they used to be so confident about their ability to defend the Godly Way tablets, their anxiety shot up when they heard that the Mo clan went to the Soft Light region and brought back a powerful master to help them. They all banded together and lurked in advance to wait for the arrival of their new formidable enemy. It was just coincidence that Zen broke in when they were terrified and ready to snap at the slightest tension. All of them mistook him for the powerful master sent by the Mo clan. The 9 top-ranked true gods rushed to form the array, and they hurried even more when they felt a space fluctuation coming towards them. All their faces were scrunched up in concentration when the expression of the true god at the helm changed. Dang it! As soon as the words left the old man's lips, Zen's figure appeared in front of them faster than their eyes could follow. Move the wood, magic wood, condense. Although the 9 top-ranked true gods moved quickly and did their best to move faster, Zen was even quicker than their best. The cyan tree array was far from finished when Zen rushed like a ghost in front of the old man. Bang! Zen only lightly smacked the old man's shoulder, and yet the old man felt like there was a burning fire in his throat. The world spun into a blur around him before he shakily dropped to the ground. The cyan tree array wavered and flickered with the loss of the old man who headed the others. How would the array be formed without him? The other top-ranked true gods gave everything they had as they scampered to save the collapsing array. Zen didn't give them the chance to regroup. Bang, 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 bang. It was only because that Zen knew they mistook him for someone else that he wouldn't kill them. He wasn't that merciless, but neither was he charitable enough to not strike back when attacked. Zen moved swiftly in quick flashes and smashed the top-ranked true gods into the ground one after another. When the last top-ranked true god dropped to his knees, the entire array finally collapsed. Blood dripped past the lips of the 9 true gods as they shook while lying on the ground, all of them desperately glaring at Zen. The old man turned deathly pale as he roamed his eyes through all the fallen true gods and knew that it was all over. Mo clan. How could a second-tier clan manage to ask help from such a powerful master? This is the heavens, will that our Cyan Tree clan will die today. Even though they called themselves the Cyan Tree clan, they were actually formed by various big clans. Their combined clan prospered because of the 2 Godly Way tablets, and even the 2 demi-holy beings specialized in cultivating cyan wood Godly Way. The other true gods stayed silent as they stared at Zen. It was meaningless even if they screamed their throats hoarse and fought to the death in front of such a powerful master. I don't know anything about the Mo clan. Zen kept his eyes on the old man as he spoke and tried to put as much sincerity as he could in his words. The old man's face crumpled as shock filled him. When no one moved despite of his explanation, Zen added, I'm just a passerby. I just wanted to comprehend the godly ways on these tablets. You started the fight, so I had to fight back. As the words finally sunk in, the 9 top-ranked true gods' jaws dropped as they stared at Zen in a mix of astonishment, shock, and confusion. There were very few consummate true gods in the Divine Land, and since the Mo clan spread the word that they had a powerful master to help them in their attack, it was natural that they assumed that Zen was the master when he happened to appear here. Are you really not sent by the Mo clan? The old man's eyes wavered and he looked as if he wanted to cry. I'm not. The nonchalant reply had the true gods of the Cyan Tree clan let out a sigh of relief despite their sad faces. Even if they tried their best, they still wouldn't be able to deal with the Mo clan. Now that all of them had spent their energy in fighting Zen, how would they handle the powerful master when he or she came? The old man thought for a moment and his eyes lit up as they settled on Zen. Friend, no, sir, our Cyan Tree clan have an enemy that would attack us. I can hand over all the savings of our clan over the years to you, and I hope that you'll help us resist our enemy. Zen's brows furrowed at the words. He just wanted to absorb the complete internal momentum and light up the Godly Way tablets in his mind. He didn't plan to stay for a long time. If, for example, he agreed and got involved in the fight between the 2 clans, he didn't know how long the conflict would last and how long he would be delayed in his journey. Are the 2 Godly Way tablets controlled by your clan? Zen directed his question to the old man. Yes, we've controlled these 2 Godly Way tablets for many divine eras. Before the old man could finish speaking, Zen took out 100 divine might coins and hurriedly handed them over with a shake of his head. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to use the 2 Godly Way tablets for a while. I can't do anything else. Once the divine might coins were in the old man's hands, Zen's figure flashed and appeared between the 2 Godly Way tablets in the next blink. The old man held the divine might coins close to his chest with a bitter and disappointed face. They didn't need divine might coins but a powerful master who could protect them. There was nothing else the old man could do but helplessly take out a healing pill and bitterly swallow it down. Everyone, please heal yourself as soon as possible. Since this person wasn't sent by the Mo clan, we may still have a chance to fight. The rest of the top-ranked true gods dragged themselves up from the ground, wiping away their blood, and began to heal themselves. They were lucky that Zen held back his strength in the fight and only bumped against them with controlled brute force so that their injuries wouldn't be serious. Whoosh! Across from them on the other side, Zen settled down in front of the Life Godly Way tablet. As the infinity ruler in his mind glowed, the golden pupils of his eyes began to absorb the complete internal momentum of the Life Godly Way. On the other side of the grassland, over 1,000 true gods appeared and rushed over. They all suddenly darted to the Godly Way tablets. Zen turned back and let his gaze sweep over the group he knew to be from the Mo clan. Zen didn't want to get involved in the fight between the two clans when he didn't know who was in the right or in the wrong. He just turned away and ignored them to focus on absorbing the internal momentum. Old man, we suggest you give up the Godly Way tablets as soon as possible. This is for your own good. If you don't have the strength but still want to keep them as yours, that's just biting off more than you can chew. The man who led the Mo clan and wore golden armor while carrying a black spear on his shoulder had a booming voice, but his mocking laughter was even louder. Hallam Mo was the current master of the Mo clan and viewed the two Godly Way tablets as an important step so that he could achieve his grand ambitions of leading the Mo clan to rise to power. He made sure to prepare well this time. The words barely left his mouth when he noticed Zen and his eyes narrowed in on him immediately. A consummate true god. The 1,000 aggressive true gods from the Mo clan suddenly hesitated when they noticed where their leader was looking. Hallam, you said they only had 9 top-ranked true gods, so I agreed to help. I don't want to fight a consummate true god. A sullen man clad in black spoke from behind Hallam Mo. Although Lathrop he was also a consummate true god, he wasn't from the floating island of a powerful clan. His strength was far inferior to other consummate true gods who came from powerful clans on the floating islands. There were few consummate true gods in the Divine Land, so Lathrop he could still do whatever he wanted in the Divine Land even if he was weaker than the others. The Mo clan had already paid a heavy price to ask him to fight, but he wasn't willing to make an enemy of another consummate true god. The surprised Hallam Mo looked at Zen in doubt and noticed that he was focused on comprehending the Godly Way tablets. Hallam Mo's eyes lit up in glee as he spoke, "Don't worry. That isn't someone the Cyan Tree clan hired. We only need to deal with the members of the Cyan Tree clan." "That's fine, but I have to warn you. If that young man interferes, I will immediately leave." Lathrop he flatly spoke his reminder. Okay, Hallam Mo nervously agreed as he looked at Zen. "That's good." Lathrop he sneered and then clapped his hands to make an invisible stream of internal momentum spread out. Behind him, 13 top-ranked true gods flew up in the air. These top-ranked true gods were like puppets with emotionless eyes that stared at nothing and saw nothing, but they were all real humans. At that moment, Zen had already completely absorbed the internal momentum of the Life Godly Way and was about to start on the internal momentum of the Cyan Wood Godly Way. But he paused in his actions as he was attracted by Lathrop's internal momentum. Great dominance technique. Zen's eyebrows rose. When Zen swept his gaze across the crowd, his eyes darkened and his expression hardened as he fixed his focus on one of them. Chapter 2294, Stepping In. Zen found his gaze drawn to a woman in cyan among the 13 top-ranked true gods. Although it had been several years since he had last seen Lucille from the evolutionary universe, Zen thought that this woman bore an uncanny resemblance to her. However, there were so many true gods in the Divine Land that there were bound to be people who looked like each other. So, instead of making a move, he decided to observe them quietly. Swish, swish, swish. Under Lathrop's orders, the array formed by the 13 top-ranked true gods quickly changed. On the surface, the array seemed to be in disorder, but in fact, there was a profound meaning hidden in it. It seemed that Lathrop not only was proficient in the Great Dominance technique but also had made great achievements in mastering arrays. In the forest, the old man of the Cyan Tree clan called on the other 8 top-ranked true gods to form the Cyan Tree array again. Bitterness filled the old man's eyes. He had known as soon as he had seen Lathrop that this was a doomsday scenario for the Cyan Tree clan. Although the Cyan Tree array was said to be able to resist the attacks of consummate true gods, it wasn't as strong as it had once been. Moreover, Zen had greatly weakened the Cyan Tree array by breaking it earlier. But even so, the Cyan Tree clan still chose to put up a strong fight. When Lathrop saw internal momentum circulating in the forest, disdain filled his eyes. "What they are doing is useless. Form 13-fold poison array. Break their array," he ordered with a sneer. Swish. In an instant, the bodies of the 13 top-ranked true gods in Lathrop's control began emitting black poison miasma into the air. Waves of sweet smell wafted off of their bodies. It was obvious that the black miasma was extremely toxic. Lathrop didn't belong to any of the wealthy clans on the floating islands. He was both righteous and evil. After all, if one wanted to become stronger without the support of the rich clans, using cruel means to achieve it was inevitable. The 13-fold poison array required 13 top-ranked true gods who were soaked in phoenix crown blood, a kind of deadly poison from the divine land to make 13 poisonous people. When they were faced with the enemy, they would release poisonous miasma to hinder and hurt the enemy. Even the trees and the grass died instantly upon contact with such poisonous people. Lathrop himself didn't dare to touch them. What was more amazing was that although the phoenix crown blood was extremely poisonous, it could greatly enhance a warrior's strength after the poison mixed with their blood. However, this increase in strength would not last long. The phoenix crown blood would constantly corrode the true gods' blood vessels and invade their inner worlds. Within half a year, the true gods' inner worlds would be destroyed, rendering them quite useless. So, every now and then, Lathrop had to capture more top-ranked true gods to be his puppets. Zen stared firmly at the woman who looked like Lucille. The poisonous miasma wafting from her body was so thick that it almost covered her completely. Since the true gods relied on their internal momentum to emit the poison miasma, Zen had a stroke of enlightenment after a moment's observation. 5 elements godly way, Zen exclaimed to himself. Now that he had discovered this new piece of information, he was sure of the woman's identity. Back in the evolutionary universe, Lucille had practiced the 5 elements godly way. Originally, Zen had not wanted to get involved in the conflict between the Mo clan and the Cyan Tree clan, but now, it seemed that he had to do something. Zen stood up ponderously as he weighed his next course of action. Although Lathrop was insufferably arrogant in front of the members of the Cyan Tree clan, most of his attention was focused on Zen. In fact, Zen was the only person that he was really wary of here. Now, when he saw Zen get up, the malice on his face suddenly disappeared, replaced instead by a hesitant expression. I have a deep grudge against the Cyan Tree clan. Please don't intervene in our affairs. After I defeat the Cyan Tree clan, I will reward you with anything you ask that is within my power. What do you think? Zen looked at him blankly and said indifferently, whatever enmity you have with the Cyan Tree clan, it has nothing to do with me. A sense of relief filled Lathrop's heart as soon as he heard this. However, Zen immediately added, but there may be some enmity between you and me. What? Lathrop's face slightly hardened. He didn't know what Zen meant. But before he could even think about how to respond, Zen disappeared right before his eyes. Lathrop had started at a grassroots level and slowly worked his way toward becoming a consummate true god. He had been in so many moments of crisis that the moment he saw Zen disappear, he knew that he was about to be attacked. Swish! As he had expected, the very next moment, Zen appeared beside him and reached out to grab his head. Zen's physical strength alone was enough to crush Lathrop into pieces. However, Lathrop was quick to react. He timely activated grand teleportation, narrowly missing Zen's hand. Then, he reappeared among the 13 puppets. Here, shrouded by the 13 puppets' poisonous miasma, he had some sort of protection against Zen. I have never met you. What hatred do you harbor toward me? He asked indignantly. But Zen didn't care to explain. If I say there is enmity, then there sure is, he said nonchalantly. He knew that if he revealed the reason he was going up against Lathrop, Lathrop would gain an edge over him. After all, the lives of the puppets were in Lathrop's hands, and they had no way of resisting his control. Crack! With that, the pair of thunder wings on Zen's back suddenly spread out. In an instant, he transformed into a streak of lightning and shot toward Lathrop. The Cyan Tree clan was astonished at the scene in front of them. Until now, they had been terrified that they would perish at Lathrop's hands. Judging by Zen's previous attitude, they hadn't even dared to expect him to help them out. And anyway, Zen was neither relative nor friend to them. They had only wished that he wouldn't make things worse for them. But to their surprise, Zen had started fighting against Lathrop. These desperate people now had a glimmer of hope in their hearts. The look on Lathrop's face turned cold when he saw Zen coming toward him despite everything. Swish, swish, swish. The poisonous miasma on the 13 venomous human bodies took the shape of tentacles and swept toward Zen. Even a consummate true god wouldn't be able to do anything in the face of the poisonous miasma. Lathrop was sure that this could, at the very least, make Zen back off. But to his surprise, Zen didn't retreat at all. Instead, he walked straight into the poisonous miasma. When Lathrop saw that Zen remained completely unaffected by the poisonous miasma, his face darkened. At this rate, he would definitely be defeated, because the 13-fold poison array was already his best trick up his sleeve. But he decided to take a risk instead of fleeing. With gritted teeth, he abruptly clasped his hands together and then held up his palm. The poisonous miasma of the 13 venomous people gathered in his palm. Mixed with the 13 people's internal momentum, the poison palm was really powerful. Seeing that Lathrop was choosing to fight him instead of retreating, Zen raised his eyebrows slightly. He was pleasantly surprised by that. Without hesitation, he struck back with his palm. Although his attack seemed ordinary, the power contained in it was terrifying. Very few consummate true gods would be able to withstand it. Unfortunately for Lathrop, he wasn't one of those few. Chapter 2295, Freedom. Bang! The moment Zen's palm met Lathrop's, the poisonous miasma on the latter's palm disintegrated. The great force spread along Lathrop's arm, turning it into powder. Although Lathrop had known that he couldn't defeat Zen, he hadn't expected that the gap between them would be so huge. He had once seized an opportunity to compete with a consummate true god of a powerful clan on the floating island. Although he had lost, he had not suffered a crushing defeat like this. Zen's palm strike was beyond anything he could have imagined. While Lathrop stood frozen in shock, Zen quickly shifted forward and struck Lathrop's belly with his other hand. Sometimes, it could be very difficult for a consummate true god to kill another consummate true god. Even if their strengths varied, both of them would be able to move in the blink of an eye. Zen was worried that if he let Lathrop escape now, it would be troublesome to chase him through the space channel. Although he was sure that he could catch Lathrop no matter what, it would still be a waste of his time. As such, it was infinitely better for him to not give Lathrop the chance to even think about his next move at all. The force of this strike seemed to be gentle, but it was enough to destroy Lathrop's inner world. Crack! With a crisp sound, Lathrop's inner world shattered into pieces. He had cultivated the Great Dominance technique, which didn't have a combat power as good as other skills. However, the structure of his inner world was extremely perfect. Now, as it disintegrated, trillions of secondary creatures died. Bang! Zen struck him once again with his palm, this time sending him flying back right into the tablet of the life Godly Way. The Godly Way tablets in the Divine Land were said to be incomparably sturdy. Now, Lathrop had proof that that was true. When his physical body hit the Godly Way tablet, all the bones in his body broke. He sat on the ground, paralyzed. However, something miraculous happened then. The tablet of the life Godly Way released a strong and powerful life force that infiltrated Lathrop's body. His wounds healed in the blink of an eye, and even his arm, which had been smashed into powder by Zen, instantly recovered. However, his inner world seemed to be gone for good. The master of the Mo clan, who was not far away, watched these events unfold with a racing heart. Zen and Lathrop were both consummate true gods, so how could the gap between them be so large? Lathrop hadn't been able to resist Zen's attacks at all. The members of the Cyan Tree clan were equally shocked at the scene in front of them. Zen stepping forward to fight Lathrop had already made them wild with joy. They had never thought that he could easily defeat Lathrop with just 2 palm strikes, as if Lathrop was just a top-ranked true god. Who on earth was this mysterious young man? Losing one's inner world meant losing one's cultivation base. Although Lathrop's soul was still powerful, without the support of the internal momentum, he was unable to use the Great Dominance technique anymore. Plop, plop. The 13 poisonous warriors who had been manipulated by Lathrop all dropped down from the sky like flies. Lathrop remained on the ground near the Godly Way tablet without making any attempt to flee. He was seriously injured, so it was impossible for him to escape from Zen's hands anyway. However, he stared at Zen with ferocious eyes. He still couldn't understand why Zen had attacked him like this. Now that the poisonous warriors had been freed, some of them gradually returned to their senses and rose up from the ground, feeling confused. Where am I? What's wrong with me? Why am I here? It's that man. These top-ranked true gods seemed to be clueless about where they were or what they were doing, but all of them couldn't help shuddering when they saw Lathrop. The miserable experience of being captured by Lathrop and refined into a poisonous warrior was still vivid in their mind. However, everything that had happened since then was a blank to them. Lucille was the last one to wake up. She didn't know the other godly geniuses, situations, but she was sure that she was the most unlucky one among them. Just after she had succeeded in sneaking into the Divine Land, she had almost been caught by a giant hand that had appeared in the sky suddenly. Although she had narrowly escaped, she had unexpectedly gotten involved in a clan's internal strife and had been chased. Fortunately, she had managed to get rid of the people chasing her, and then joined the Wisteria clan in the Grace region, which was a powerful first-tier clan in the Divine Land. Taking advantage of her outstanding talent, she had quickly gained a foothold in the Wisteria clan, and for a time, she had attracted the attention of a consummate true god in the Wisteria clan and gotten preferential treatment. Over just a short period of time, she had become a top-rank true god as everyone had expected. However, one day, when she had been going about her business, she had encountered Lathrop, who had taken her away and refined her into a poisonous warrior. She could not remember anything that had happened since then. As soon as she opened her eyes and saw Lathrop, fear filled her face. But then, she saw a familiar figure standing next to her. Zen. It had been years since she saw Zen last time. Moreover, his temperament had changed greatly after he had stepped into the consummation of true god realm. He was so different that she almost didn't dare to recognize him. Zen smiled at Lucille. "Are you really Zen?" she asked again, still not able to believe it. Zen smiled. "Yes, I'm indeed Zen." For a moment, Lucille was stunned, but then tears welled up in her eyes, and she bit her lips to keep the tears from falling. Even though Lucille was an ace talent in the Divine Land, she had never experienced such hardships before entering the Divine Land. Even before being refined into a poisonous person, she had thought that she would die soon. In fact, she had never expected to see Zen again. Now that he was in front of her, she was so excited that she rushed to him without hesitation. But just when she was a step away from him, she suddenly stopped. Judging by how careful Lathrop had been when refining her and the other poisonous warriors, she guessed that she would possibly hurt Zen if she touched him while being covered with deadly poison. However, Zen gently pulled her into his arms without any scruples. The past few years had been rough on Lucille. Although she was a strong-minded person, she couldn't help but burst out crying like a child at this moment. When Lathrop, who was leaning against the Godly Way tablet, saw this scene, the corner of his eyes couldn't help twitching. "So the enmity between us is all because of this little girl?" Lathrop asked. In his eyes, these top-ranked true gods were just puppets who would be replaced within a year or so. There were only a few consummate true gods in the Divine Land, but there was no shortage of ordinary true gods here. It was a piece of cake for him to capture such true gods and refine them into poisonous warriors. He had never taken them seriously or even thought of them as sentient beings. "Yes. Does it surprise you?" Zen asked in reply. A bitter smile appeared on Lathrop's face. "It's really unexpected. How should I deal with him?" Ignoring Lathrop, Zen turned to ask for Lucille's advice. "Kill him," Lucille said coldly. She had become much calmer after seeing Lathrop sitting helplessly on the ground. "Kill this vicious guy. You'd better draw out his soul for refining." The other top-ranked true gods who had been refined into poisonous warriors also chimed in, their voices filled with anger and resentment. "Okay." Suddenly appearing above Lathrop, Zen looked down at him and said, "I don't have much interest in extracting and refining your soul, but I'm proficient in certain methods of torturing a soul. If you cooperate with me and hand over the method of detoxification, then I'll grant you a less painful death." Chapter 2296, Detoxification Method. Hearing Zen mentioning the detoxification method, the poisonous people were shocked. Their resentment for Lathrop temporarily blinded them to their own problems, and they had forgotten that they had been turned into poisonous people by him. However, they were not worried about the toxins in their bodies, at least not yet. They had suffered burns and erosion on their skin from contact with the Phoenix Crown blood, some worse than others, but the toxins in their bodies were easy to remove. However, the Phoenix Crown blood had entered their elixir fields along their meridians and begun to invade their inner worlds. This was the most pressing issue. "Yes, detoxification. My inner world is about to collapse. We can't kill him. Our life depends on him. Only he can reverse what he has done. Ask him to give us some antidotes." These top-ranked true gods' desire to live was still strong. If they were rendered unable to cultivate anymore, the only solution would likely be to give up their elixir fields. This, however, was the last resort, as without their ability to cultivate, their cultivation base would be completely lost, and they would be completely useless in the Divine Land. It was a fate worse than death for some. Now Lathrop's face was bloodless, pale as untrodden snow. After he had lost his elixir field, he couldn't even explode the inner world in his body to commit suicide. No matter what, he was doomed to die. How he wished to end it quickly. He didn't want his soul to be tortured and used for the benefit of his enemies, who might use the soul-searching method to extract information from him. All of a sudden, he raised his head, unbuttoned the space ring, and threw it at Zen. Hoarsely, he addressed Zen. His strength was dwindling. Phoenix crown blood can be forced out of the body through the cultivation of the energy-gathering poison skill, he said. It's inside this space ring. As he threw the ring, Lathrop wiped out the soul mark engraved in it. The ring glowed with a red light, and suddenly, an ornately decorated booklet appeared in Zen's hand. Puzzled, Zen opened the booklet and leafed through a few pages. Then, he nodded, and his furrowed brow became smooth. Now he knew that the energy-gathering poison skill was a kind of reverse poison cultivation method, used to detoxify the true gods who had practiced poison skills and become contaminated as a result. Then, Lathrop's expression suddenly changed. Indeed, an idea had just come to the surface of the tumultuous sea of thoughts in his mind. Less than a second later, an intense soul pressure came from the space ring in Zen's hand and rushed directly towards Zen's mind. Lathrop's eyes suddenly glazed over, as if he had entered a trance. He had given up his own body and flown away as a disembodied soul. He hadn't played any tricks using the energy-gathering poison skill. While Zen was busy examining whether the booklet was real or not, Lathrop had activated an offensive soul weapon in his own space ring. After all, Lathrop was a consummate true god who cultivated the great dominance technique. In terms of strength, many of the other consummate true gods were superior to him, but his advantage was his soul, strong as a soul could be. Using a soul weapon to shake Zen's mind had been his only chance to escape. Although he was now a mere soul, he had the ability to occupy a body shell. As long as he managed to stay alive in the divine land, he would still have a chance to become whole again. Meanwhile, Zen was coming back to his senses. This was testament to how much he stood out from his lot. If any of the other consummate true gods had been attacked by a soul weapon, they wouldn't have been able to come to their sense in such a short time. But now, Zen's soul was even stronger than that of many demi-holy beings. The powerful soul fluctuation had hit Zen's own soul, making him a little confused, but the effect was not much worse than that of a mild concussion. In less than 2 seconds, Zen's eyes regained their vision, sharp as ever. He raised his head and his eyes followed the path along which Lathrop's soul had fled. His eyes narrowed slightly, and a faint golden light appeared on the surface of his own soul. Then, extremely cold soul pressure burst violently out from his eyes. Swoosh! Tens of thousands of soul arrows were all of a sudden tearing through the sky at lightning speed, all aiming at Lathrop's soul. Before anyone could blink, his soul was torn to pieces by the countless soul arrows. The poisonous people, the Mo clan and the Cyan Tree clan could not see this with their eyes, but they could feel the immense soul pressure spreading through the sky with their spiritual sense. The soul pressure emitted an extremely sharp intent. Even if they used their spiritual sense to detect it, their scalps would still go numb with terror. Needless to say, Lathrop suffered an unenviable fate. The members of the Cyan Tree clan and the poisonous people were not so easy to scare, but Hallam and the true gods of the Mo clan felt a chill creep up their spines. Zen was proving himself to be virtually invincible. The Mo clan members weren't sure whether they should stay or leave. They stood rooted to the spot, afraid that if they moved a muscle, this formidable young man would kill them. All the while the Mo clan members trembled in fear, their leader was pondering an excuse to somehow disassociate himself from Lathrop. Having killed Lathrop, Zen now returned to Lucille and threw the booklet to her. The other poisonous true gods followed the exchange closely. Feeling their eyes on them, Zen smiled nonchalantly. Give them a copy of this cultivation method. I think they really want it, he said with a wink. All right, she said, nodding. Then, Zen noticed something stir in his peripheral vision. Turning, he saw the old man of the Cyan Tree clan leading his clansmen out of the forest and heading straight for Zen. Thank you for your help, said the old man with gratitude. I hadn't planned to make a move, Zen answered politely. It's just that the guy was trying to kill my friend. He glanced anxiously at Lucille. The divine land wasn't the same as the evolutionary universe after all. Those godly geniuses couldn't be lucky forever. At some point, their luck would run cold and they would perish. Zen wondered how the other godly geniuses were now. Even so, meeting you has been the best thing that happened to our clan in ages, the old man said reverently. As he spoke, he took out a small jade box. Opening it carefully, he revealed an emerald-colored pill within. I can see that your friend has been gravely poisoned. This pill is made from the internal momentum of life godly way, and it takes an entire divine era to make just one such pill. It's the most precious treasure of our Cyan Tree clan, and I want your friend to have it. Once you swallow it, you can get a new body and expel all poison. Please accept this humble gift to you, added the old man, and bowed his head as he extended the box to Zen. Examining the emerald green pill for just a moment, Zen could tell it was authentic. It indeed contained a significant amount of extremely pure life law. After taking over the pill, Zen threw it to Lucille. Then he turned his head and looked at Hallam, who was on the hillside. He said coldly, "I didn't want to participate in the disputes between the Mo clan and the Cyan Tree clan, but that guy you hired tried to destroy my friend. It's a bad luck for your clan. The Mo clan should move out of the Windwood region from now on." A second-tier clan often occupied several divine cities and had a deep foundation in a region. But now, Zen was asking the Mo clan to move. Hearing Zen's words, Hallam could only feel bitterness in his mouth. Fortunately for him, Zen was not a bloodthirsty person. Many other consummate true gods would have chosen to kill Hallam if they had been in Zen's shoes. Though reluctant and resentful, Hallam immediately consented. Lathrop made poisonous people. He deserved his fate, he said, his throat tight. "Sir, you have rid this place of a villain. The Mo clan was blind and foolish to have associated with someone like him. We deserve the punishment and will move out of the Windwood region immediately as you command." Having concluded his thoughts, Hallam didn't dare to linger any longer. He turned and left, his people following close in his wake. Chapter 2297, Arrival. The Cyan Tree clan felt deeply indebted to Zen for driving away the Mo clan. As a result, they zealously invited Zen to visit their clan. Zen refused them firmly but politely. His original intention was to completely absorb the internal momentum of the Godly Way tablets, then leave as soon as he achieved his goal. But he had met Lucille, and his natural instinct was to protect her. The old man of the Cyan Tree clan understood how Zen felt and did not pester him to go with them. He led his clansmen back into the forest after they had thanked Zen sincerely. "I still want to comprehend the internal momentum inscribed on the Godly Way tablets. Meanwhile, you can try to cultivate this energy-gathering poison skill. I will send you back to the fairy palace right after I absorb the internal momentum," Zen told Lucille. Lucille nodded her head a bit then sat down cross-legged. As she looked on, the other 12 poisonous warriors started to excrete the poison as soon as they obtained the copies of energy-gathering poison skill. The Life Godly Way tablet was very tranquil. Instead of attacking people with its internal momentum, it cured any living beings that approached it. In contrast, the Cyanwood Godly Way tablet was more volatile in temperament, almost equally so with the Thunderstorm Godly Way tablet. It had taken Zen a significant amount of time just to approach this Godly Way tablet. After 5 minutes, Zen had already finished the absorption of internal momentum from the Cyanwood Godly Way tablet and he returned to Lucille's side. Lucille was in a state of meditation. He noticed that she had expelled a large quantity of toxic miasma. When the dark brown poisonous miasma had been excreted from her body, it immediately pooled into the ground surrounding her and formed a striking black circle. The same phenomenon had also happened to the other poisoned people. "It would be best if I send her back to the fairy palace directly." An idea suddenly popped into Zen's mind. It had not been long since he had left the fairy palace. If he returned now, it would not be easy for him to leave immediately. Lucille had already been to the fairy palace once. If he sent her back, Augustus and Joy would be able to take care of her needs in the fairy palace. The mountain token materialized in his hand the moment he thought of it. He immediately activated the token and pointed it at Lucille. Buzz. The disruption in space caused by the mountain token abruptly roused Lucille from her trance. "Zen, you." Lucille was surprised by this turn of events. "I'll send you back to the fairy palace. Please don't resist," Zen told her softly. "But Lucille hesitated. She had no time to think about the situation as she was suddenly sucked into the space channel and was transported directly to the fairy palace. This guy still hasn't changed even after so many years. Lucille pouted all throughout the time that she was traveling in the space channel. Although she knew that she would be safer in the fairy palace, she would have much preferred it if she traveled through the divine land with Zen. But as he had just sent her back without an explanation, she was naturally depressed. After he had sent Lucille back to the fairy palace, Zen smiled as he glanced at the mountain token. He returned it into his space ring before proceeding forward. He had passed through the Windwood region, the Purple Light region, the Bright Golden region, and other small regions. Zen had continuously used the grand teleportation skill to cross these regions without stopping. A few people accidentally saw Zen appear out of nowhere, but he instantly disappeared under their astonished gazes. Some divine citizens who had previous experiences with similar phenomena pointed at the place where Zen disappeared, claiming that it was a theurgy that only consummate true gods or warriors above that level could perform. After he had passed through a number of small regions, Zen took a detour to several larger regions where there were Godly Way tablets. It was a good opportunity to comprehend the internal momentum of the Godly Way tablets along the way. As he headed towards the south, he made sure that he was also able to absorb the internal momentum along the way. He had found 13 godly way tablets in the span of the past 20 days. He considered it to be a good harvest in his journey. It wasn't easy to collect the internal momentum of all the godly way tablets. Considering his cultivation at the consummation of true God realm, the distance he traveled in the divine land using the grand teleportation skill was still too short for him. If he became a demi-holy being, or even a holy being, it wouldn't be a difficult task for him to visit the 3,000 godly way tablets scattered throughout the divine land. After he had been traveling for a month, Zen had finally arrived at the Evil Ghost region. The Evil Ghost region wasn't called the Evil Ghost region in the early days. 60 divine eras ago, the Abyss Demon region wasn't as large as it was now. The entire Abyss Demon region had only annexed the Red Lotus region. As eons passed, the Abyss Demon region's area grew larger and finally expanded into the territory of the Evil Ghost region. Even though the inside and outside of the Forbidden area were very different from each other, the Forbidden area considerably affected the outside world. After the Abyss Demon region had expanded to this area, all manner of fierce creatures continuously appeared. Even some living beings who were naturally mild and peaceful had become increasingly ferocious. This was how the area gained its name, the Evil Ghost region. Whoosh! Zen directly crossed the border of the neighboring large region into the area of the Evil Ghost region. As soon as he set foot into this area, ha ha ha! Just a short distance above Zen's head, a monster with a human head and the body of an eagle laughed horribly. It opened its bloody maw wide and swooped upon Zen. Crack! Zen's eyes flashed, and a bolt of lightning streaked through the air and struck the human-headed eagle monster. Only after he had already killed the monster did Zen realize that it might have been a bit inappropriate for him to do so. After the last grand teleportation, he had landed in a large canyon. On both ends of this canyon were countless human-headed eagle-bodied monsters, squatting on either side of the canyon. The resounding roar of the thunder echoed through the valley and immediately alarmed these monsters. The valley was silent for only a few seconds, before all the human-headed eagle-bodied monsters spread their wings as one and rushed towards Zen. The monsters screeched as one, their strange and horrible laughter resounding throughout the canyon. Ha ha ha, ka, ka, ka. Sensing that he was in trouble, Zen shook his head slightly. He activated the grand teleportation and disappeared from the canyon. However, the Evil Ghost region seemed to deserve its reputation. As Zen moved to a new location, he met another kind of monster. This time, it was a kid of butterfly with a ghost face on its wings. He had killed some of the butterflies with his thunderstorm godly way, but eventually, he had no choice but to teleport again. After a few unpleasant encounters, Zen finally reached the eastern area of the Evil Ghost region. This was where the border of the Evil Ghost region and the Abyss Demon region was located. This is the Abyss Demon region. As he floated in midair, Zen could only stare blankly at the scene before him. There was a huge crater in front of him. The deep crater seemed endless, its borders extending farther than the eyes could see. After all, the entire Abyss Demon region had annexed several large regions. This scene was familiar to Zen as he had seen it before through the stone mouse, but it shocked him more when he saw the scene with his own eyes. Dark green smoke rose up from the bottom of the abyss, permeating everywhere. Although the space in the forbidden area had been sealed, his nostrils were still invaded by the pungent smell of sulfur contained in the smoke. Rumble. The edge of the deep crater kept collapsing inwards. The Abyss Demon region was still expanding at an alarming rate, continuously eroding the land of the Evil Ghost region. If it kept up such speed, it would completely engulf the Evil Ghost region in a few divine eras. Some people had even dared to predict that if the expansion of the Abyss Demon region would continue uncontrollably, it would completely occupy the entire divine land. Zen looked around him and found himself in a bit of a dilemma. The corpse of the stone mouse only gave him a vague picture of the place. Logically speaking, he had already reached his destination, but where could he find the stone mouse after it was reincarnated? Chapter 2298, Hiding. Zen walked along the edge of the crater for a while, but he didn't find anything special. He then narrowed his eyes and, with his spiritual sense, searched the surrounding area within dozens of miles. Except for the fact that when part of his spiritual sense expanded into the forbidden land, it hit an invisible wall and bounced back, he found nothing unusual. After searching for a while more, he took out the stone mouse's corpse from his space ring. Once the corpse was activated, the image appeared in his mind again. As he mentally moved to the center of the image, he physically walked over to the same exact place that was in the center of the image. It's the same place, Zen said, feeling confused. Normally, when a rare creature like the stone mouse was born, it would make quite a scene. Traces of its birth would linger behind even if it wasn't physically present yet. So why couldn't he see the slightest difference in this place? It looked like absolutely nothing out of the ordinary had happened here. Had he come too late? Had the body of the reborn stone mouse already been taken away? Just as he was wondering about this, a dozen beams of light crossed his spiritual sense. There are people coming. Zen immediately retracted his spiritual sense and looked down. Right below him, there was a crack that spread from the edge of the crater. He took a step forward and entered the crack. The truth of cultivation nature. Hide. As he uttered these words, his breath and aura disappeared, and his physical form completely melted into his surroundings. In the perception of others, he would look no different from a stone. Not long after he had hidden in plain sight, more than a dozen people flew up to this area. One of the strong men sniffed the air and said, "The smell from the abyss demon region is disgusting. It's just the smell of sulfur. It's not a big deal. Did you notice a streak of spiritual sense just now?" Another man said in a low voice. "No, I didn't feel it, either. Can there be anyone else in this place? Leland, you are too sensitive." The rest of them didn't know what Leland was talking about. "I sensed it, but it only lasted for a moment before disappearing. Was I just imagining it?" Leland murmured, more to himself than anyone else. However, Zen, who was hiding in the crack, could clearly hear the whole conversation and was a little taken aback. This Leland guy seemed to have really keen senses. Zen wondered what his cultivation base could be. If these people were just top-rank true gods, Zen would have nothing to worry about. In fact, he was not even afraid of consummate true gods unless they were from the powerful clans on the floating islands, because only they had holy beings to back them up. However, the probability of him running into such a situation was very low. "Well, let's not think too much about it. We should stick to our own business. Cameron Liu, where is the place you mentioned?" Leland continued in a low voice. With a muffled voice, Cameron replied, "We're standing there. I set up a magic array to hide that cave." A few dozen days ago, he had gone to the evil ghost region to capture ghost rhinoceroses. As their horns were an indispensable material for the refinement of many top-grade pills, they were extremely valuable and as such very popular among all the powerful clans and first- and second-tier families. In the current climate, the horns of a ghost rhinoceros could be sold for about 20 divine might coins. It was not easy for a true god to earn divine might coins outside of venturing the forbidden lands. Killing ghost rhinoceroses and getting their horns was one of the best ways to earn coins. But as the number of true gods hunting ghost rhinoceroses had increased, there were fewer and fewer ghost rhinoceroses in the evil ghost region. Last time, Cameron had not encountered any ghost rhinoceros at all, so he had ventured deeper and deeper into the evil ghost region. But instead of finding a ghost rhinoceros, he had stumbled upon a strange phenomenon at the edge of the abyss demon region. After flying to this place, he had found a cave that had collapsed here. He hadn't been able to figure out what was under the cave, but judging from that weird phenomenon, he was sure that something had turned up. It could be a rare treasure or a rare beast. As a top-ranked true god with low strength, Cameron hadn't dared to explore the cave alone. Therefore, he had set up a magic array to hide the cave instead. Although he did not have outstanding combat abilities, he was extremely proficient in setting up arrays. His array had even managed to deceive Zen. "It's just a magic array." Hearing what Cameron said, Zen pursed his lips. He couldn't believe that he had been careless enough to be fooled by a magic array. At this point, he could not help but carefully poke his head out from a corner of the crack. As his eyes swept over those true gods, he raised his eyebrows in surprise. One demi-holy being and two consummate true gods. Shock appeared in Zen's eyes. In the divine land, there were very few demi-holy beings. Only a few of the first-tier clans had them. Naturally, Zen had never imagined that he would meet a demi-holy being today. Just as Zen was sizing them up, the purple-robed demi-holy being turned his head in Zen's direction as if he had sensed something. His eyes, as sharp as swords, swept over the crack not far away. But the crack was obviously empty. Feeling that something was odd, the demi-holy being released his spiritual sense but found nothing. "Leland, what's wrong with you today? Why are you so suspicious?" A middle-aged man in white asked with a smile. The demi-holy being was Leland, the lord of a region. Some of the first-tier clans were too weak to have a floating island in the time sea, so they could only expand their own territory and ultimately occupy the entire region. But the powerful clans on the floating islands were dismissive of such clans. For example, after the Han clan had become a powerful clan with their own floating island, they hadn't intervened in the development of the regions under their rule. They did not completely control the regions, but gave a lot of resources to the families attached to them. Knowing that it was impossible for him to become a holy being or make his clan a powerful one, Leland claimed to be the lord of the region he lived in. I keep feeling like someone is spying on us, but it seems that I'm just imagining things, Leland said. He did not expect that a consummate true god could be hiding right under his nose. At this moment, Cameron walked 3 circles around an open space, and then he heavily struck the ground with his palms. A dark magenta line quickly spread along the path Cameron had walked, forming a big circle on the ground. Until now, everything inside this circle had been condensed by the magic array. Now that Cameron had withdrawn the magic array, a large cave appeared. Leland stared at the entrance of the cave for a moment, and then he entered it. Without any hesitation, the 2 consummate true gods and over 10 top-ranked true gods followed him into the cave. After a while, Zen slowly climbed out of the crack and frowned. The cave must have been built for the stone mouse. Unexpectedly, they have found it ahead of me. What's more troublesome is that one of them is a demi-holy being. After waiting at the entrance of the cave for a while, Zen quietly slipped inside. Chapter 2299, No Way Back. The cave was only just formed, so its stones and soil were still soft. A slight touch could make it collapse. While Zen had used the truth of cultivation nature to keep himself hidden, if Leland was alerted, he'd be easily exposed. So Zen moved slowly and cautiously on his way down. Leland, there are 2 paths. The cave mostly went straight up and down save for the fork in the road ahead. From where he was positioned, Zen could clearly hear the conversation happening below. They're not 2 caves. I've already checked with my spiritual sense, the one on the left is a dead end. We should turn right, Leland explained. Okay, and so the group pressed on to the right and continued falling. Soon after, Zen also came to the same spot. Not wanting to go through the trouble of using his spiritual sense to identify the next paths, he decided to follow behind the group. Without much hesitation, he fell through the right cave as well. The cave grew darker and darker the deeper he fell. The smell of sulfur also grew more pungent. The smell of sulfur is too strong, one of the top-ranked true gods complained. Do you think this will lead all the way to the Abyss Demon region? Another man muttered. Maybe. The cave is incredibly deep, after all. The Abyss Demon region was nothing short of a nightmare to the people of the Divine Land. It was common for powerhouses from the powerful clans on the floating islands to perish there. Nicholas had even ordered all the best true gods out as a precaution. If the cave truly did lead to the Abyss Demon region, they'd be in deep trouble. Haha, we could gain a lot if this place really leads there, Leland said aloud. You're right, we'll have found another entrance to the Abyss Demon region, said another man. The only known entrance to the Abyss Demon region was located in the depths of the Red Lotus region, a place occupied by powerful clans. Even as a demi-holy being, Leland had no right to enter the Abyss Demon region. The only way to do so was to seek the help of powerful clans and use their space channels. No one could go through without the clan's assistance. Zen hadn't expected the cave to go so deep. But he was patient enough. He was different from the people below, after all. They were only drawn to the abnormal phenomenon that occurred after the stone mouse's reincarnation. They did not actually know what was really going on. On the other hand, Zen was well aware of it. After about 15 minutes, the tunnel below grew wider. As he descended, he accidentally rubbed against the cave's wall. He winced, worrying that the stone would loosen to rubble and roll down to the people below, alerting them of his presence. But to his surprise, the wall was rather soft. So this is the layer of soft stones? Zen muttered to himself in shock. He went all the way down with the group, not knowing how far he had gone. He had probably already passed the layers of gangue and flint, he thought. Underneath the layer of soft stones is lethal fire magma. It can burn even holy beings, Zen thought to himself, remembering to stay vigilant. As he thought about it, the discussion from below seemed to grow busier. We have reached the layer of soft stones. Shall we head back? We can't resist the lethal fire magma. Some wanted to head back, afraid of the danger awaiting them if they pressed on. We've already made it this far. Jalen, you're a consummate true god. How could you be so cowardly? One of them chided in a low voice. Right, we're almost at the very end, only one step away. If we return now, all our efforts will be wasted, Leland added. Jalen said nothing and frowned. But just then, a gust of hot wind blew past them from further within the cave. Wah, the hot wind seemed to whistle along the tunnel. Where is that coming from? Let's go down and have a look. Getting a strange feeling from the hot wind, the group hastened their steps. Wah! The wind reached Zen and swept past him. This smell, he said, sniffing the air. Apart from the thick odor of sulfur, there was also some kind of faint fishy, sweet smell in the wind. He couldn't put his finger on what it was. Then, out of the blue, a scream came from below. Watch out! There are creatures coming out of the walls. The legendary earth ghosts. What the heck, how could we run into them here? Panicked voices grew louder. Zen rushed to a corner to keep himself out of sight before popping his head out to take a peek. Four-horned black snakes as thick as his arm emerged from the walls of soft stones. It was known that the layer of soft stones was the hardest layer of earth in the divine land. Even the top-ranked true gods couldn't hope to break it, and it would also take consummate true gods a lot of effort to destroy it. These creatures slithering out of the walls were by no means ordinary. In the history of the divine land, the earth ghosts were recorded. They were known to be the only creature that could crawl freely through the layer of soft stones. Because they lived in the depths of the earth, not much else was truly known about them. Because most of the true gods who had witnessed these creatures were already dead, the earth ghosts remained a mystery. But Zen knew better than to act rashly. He wasn't the earth ghost's target, after all. He figured he wouldn't leave his hiding spot unless it was absolutely necessary. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The earth ghosts bowed as they kept their tails within the walls, slipping out their tongues. They didn't seem to be in a hurry to attack. What are they doing? Doesn't look like they mean to harm us. We'd better go back. A rather lanky top-ranked true god began sobbing. Jalen agreed and firmly said, we still have time to leave. These earth ghosts may be protecting something, but no matter what it is, we're too weak to get past them. We can just sell this information to the powerful clans and leave them to explore. But just as he finished his words, the entire cave began shaking. The path they came from was completely closed off from the vibrations. From a corner in the cave, Zen had no choice but to jump out. If he didn't, he would have been completely trapped in the layer of soft stones. As he showed himself, he exchanged glances with the group and smiled, looking rather embarrassed. Chapter 2300, The Disappeared Space Law. Leland's group was high alert to the four-legged earth ghosts around them. But when the cave shut them in from above, they were surprised to see a person jump out before them. Taking a closer look, the stranger turned out to be a consummate true god. How strange, they thought. Who are you? How dare you follow us? Leland snapped, glaring at Zen. As a demi-holy being, Leland had cultivated his soul to the soul of light. His voice was laced with soul pressure, bearing right down on Zen. He wasn't expecting Zen to be seriously harmed from it, but he was hoping to at least make the man dizzy. But Zen only remained still, giving no response. The eerie reaction had made Leland kind of scared. If they were still on the ground, Leland would have taken action without hesitation. But they were now in a dangerous place. The walls were densely covered with four-legged earth ghosts. And Zen looked like no ordinary person. It didn't seem wise for Leland to make the first move. While they were traveling, Leland had been aware of some kind of presence in the cave. He could sense that someone was following them, but wrote the feeling off as an illusion. I'm not following you. You only happen to be a step ahead of me, Zen replied calmly. You're lying. I discovered this cave myself a long time ago. I've used a magic array to cover it up. You're obviously following us. Cameron, a top-ranked true god, accused him coldly. With that, Leland and the other true gods turned hostile. But Zen merely shrugged, not caring to defend himself. He was well aware that the cave had something to do with the stone mouse. Harold and he had found the abnormal phenomena there first. But he didn't think it necessary to mention that fact to these people. Leave him alone. The cave has sealed us in. We'd better find a way out of here first. Jalen exclaimed, keeping a careful eye on the earth ghosts. After the cave sealed them in, the earth ghosts began moving. After a long moment of examining Zen, Leland turned toward the depths of the cave, unwilling to leave just yet. The situation seemed too complicated. He wasn't going to break out into a violent fight with Zen who just came out of nowhere. Choosing to prioritize their safety, he sighed and said, "You're right. We have to leave. Let's take a minute and figure something out." In the divine land, the consummate true gods and holy beings rarely displayed the grand teleportation technique while going downward in the underground. It was too risky. The underground of the divine land was full of lethal fire magma. If they miscalculated their distances while going downward, they'd fall right into the magma and be completely devoured. But it was a rather simple task to move upward from the Earth's bottom. They could reach the Earth's surface once they displayed the grand teleportation technique, after all. One demi-holy being and 2 consummate true gods were powerful enough to bring along 10 other people. When Leland was ready to leave, Jalen heaved a sigh of relief. With his mind, he intended to build a space channel. But at this moment, something strange happened. No fluctuation of space was triggered. I can't use the grand teleportation technique. Stress came over Jalen as he kept trying and failing. The other top-ranked true gods grew nervous and turned to Leland. He was a demi-holy being. If anyone could save them, it would have been him. When Leland stretched his hand out and gave it a wave, no space fluctuation happened either. Impossible, Leland muttered to himself, looking grave. The space law might have been prohibited in some places in the Divine Land. The grand teleportation technique was useless on the Time Sea and the Sunrise Tree, for instance. But the space law was prohibited on the Time Sea because of the ruling slate's restrictions, and only the consummate true gods were forbidden. The demi-holy beings and holy beings were still allowed to do so. In the Sword Clan, Harper had used the Sunrise Tree to transform the entire region into the non-combat zone, prohibiting the use of the grand teleportation technique. While the space law had been prohibited, that didn't make it ineffective. But in the cave, Leland and Jalen couldn't activate the space law at all. It didn't seem that the space law existed in this cave. It was unbelievable. As far as any of them knew, there shouldn't have been such a place in the Divine Land. At this very moment, the densely packed 4-legged earth ghosts that clung to the cave's walls crawled towards them. Hiss! In the face of these earth ghosts, a cold light flashed in Leland's eyes before 5-colored internal momentum spread from his hands. At the sight of the internal momentum, Zen slightly raised his brows. It's the 5 elements godly way. As a demi-holy being, his internal momentum is really steady. 2 strands of 5-colored internal momentum met, producing a huge killing force. Crack, 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 hundreds of 4-legged earth ghosts that were rushing ahead were suddenly kneaded together by the killing force and turned into a huge black mass. If a group of true gods were kneaded by this force, they would easily be done for. But after another while of kneading, the earth ghosts bumped heavily against the cave wall. They scattered but remained intact. They rolled along the ground before charging at the group once again. Hiss! Everyone turned pale at the scene. Since even the demi-holy being was no match for these demons, the rest figured there was no hope for them. Let's go. We have to run further down. Leland called the others to him, waving his arm in urgency. With no way out, they had no choice but to move forward. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Jalen and Cameron were the first to run down. Seeing that the group of true gods had led the escape, Zen took a step forward and followed closely behind them. But as soon as he rushed over, dozens of 4-legged earth ghosts pounced on him. The 8 smoky melodies. With a thought, Zen's body became light enough to float naturally as he drilled through the cracks between the demons. Ah, dang it. Just then, the 2 top-ranked true gods before Zen were surrounded by the earth ghosts, including Cameron who set up the magic array earlier. Soon, they were bitten off into pieces. It was a horrible sight. Help! Cameron snarled furiously. The other one was already dead. Half of his head had been feasted on by the 4-legged earth ghosts. There was no chance of his survival. While Cameron cried out for help, all the other top-ranked true gods were busy running for their lives. How could they even think about running back to their deaths? Leland, Jalen, and the rest didn't have the slightest intention of helping him. Hearing Cameron's shrill cries, Zen furrowed his brows as he floated in front of the struggling man. He gathered the force in his palm and laid a heavy blow on Cameron's chest. Puff! The force entered Cameron's body without hurting him. As he shuddered, the force spread out from his body, dispelling all the 4-legged earth ghosts that were attacking him. With that, Zen grabbed him and fled.